Morning.
Thanks, Dan. Very, very helpful indeed. Our next presenter, Mike Pott, the CEO of FirstNet. Mike began his career in the public safety with Tempe, Arizona Police Department. As a police captain in Corvallis, Oregon, he held executive assignments leading 3 different bureaus, including the Regional 911 Center. Later in his career, as technology senior executive at Northrop Grumman and Hewlett-Packard, he led mission-critical public safety projects for both state, local police, fire, emergency management service agencies, as well as Department of Homeland Security and Department of Defense. A really great history and experience. In his current role as head of FirstNet, Mike is leading the organization's efforts to deploy the nationwide public safety communications network we've all heard about. With AT&T as the architect and provider, we can expect a world-leading network that will provide our emergency services with the most advanced communications capabilities available and which they desperately deserve and need. Please put your hands together and welcome Mike Pott. Thank you.
Good morning. How is everybody? Well, how many of you, by show of hands, have heard of FirstNet? Wow. How many have heard of public safety? Perfect. I want to thank you all very much for being invited. Unfortunately, every single day, we're reminded of the need. Just last night in England, 22 dead, 60 plus people injured, children, our children, and the need for technology to try to help the response for first responders every single day. It's, I'm hoping, and my passion and my mission is that someday technology and innovation will outrun terrorism. Is it going to prevent it? Absolutely not. But anything that we can do, all of us in this room, all of your companies, everything that you bring to bear, I think it's incumbent on us that we do that. So what is the First Responder Network Authority? Oh, I don't even have slides. We're running on the cheap. First Responder Network Authority, our first step. We were born out of the 9/11 Commission last recommendation for nationwide interoperability. It's a statute that was born in 2012. And what Congress did in that statute is they stood up an independent authority. So I'm the CEO of an independent authority within the government. I report to a board of directors in Congress. That's why, unfortunately, I'd love to be here for the rest of the show, but I have to go do part of my responsibilities to Congress tomorrow. But what they did in that statute is they said, we need a nationwide interoperable broadband network. And they did 2 things. They gave us $7 billion in cash and 20 megahertz of spectrum. We're the only federal entity that actually has spectrum licensed to us. All the rest of the federal government asset spectrums are held by NTIA and the federal government. It's specific to this independent authority. There was healthy skepticism, and there still some is, that is this really going to work? This has been tried. Remember, 9/11 was over 15 years ago, and there have been a lot of attempts to do something like this, but the private sector didn't see a return. Although the private sector and many of the companies here are very passionate about public safety, about protecting community, there wasn't the ROI that made sense. So FirstNet was born with the goal to try to come about with a successful private-public partnership where the federal government, public safety, and the private sector could come together. And so our challenge as FirstNet was try to design a business plan and approach where all those incentives could align to make sense to get it to a win-win-win. So we developed a business model plan focused on value proposition, return on investment, time to market, cash flow. Those are terms you don't typically hear in the federal government or in federal procurements. Our goal was to build the most advanced nationwide public broadband network for first responders. When we did that, we set out to find a solution, not a carrier. Our solution was based on over 2 years of contacting and working with all of the states, all public safety at the state, federal, and local levels, tribal, to say what is the priorities and what are the needs for this type of a network. Our responsibility is to all 56 states and territories. It's not just in the populated areas, it's the entire country, including the rural. We were looking for a solution that could leverage existing infrastructure, and that's where a lot of you come into play. A solution that's resilient, reliable, and also has a significant rural component, because disasters don't stay in just populated areas, and we all know that, and you know it better than others. And the most important thing is this network, when it's built, had to have the ability for priority preemption for public safety. When they needed it, how they needed it. So in a time of crisis, and you heard the earlier example of the Cotton Bowl and 94,000 people coming, and you've all been at events with the 5 bars, and you can't get text messages out, you can't get streaming out. Public safety is right there with you. And public safety, even last night, was trying to respond to 22 dead and over 60 people hurt. And they were trying to capitalize and use technology to the best of their advantage. Well, this network that is being built is going to guarantee to public safety that they have priority even over all the commercial traffic. And in a time of crisis, if the spectrum starts to fill up with that particular quadrant, public safety devices and those entities will get priority use, even to the point where they will preempt existing traffic on that spectrum. So is that an inconvenience to the rest of us? Absolutely. But is it needed? Absolutely so. So that's one of the good, important tenets of what we're trying to accomplish. So just a few months ago, we took the last step to the first rung in the ladder by selecting AT&T. As I mentioned before, we weren't set out to pick a carrier or AT&T, we were out to find a solution. So we're off to a fast start. We're already 3 months ahead of schedule, and I'll talk a little about that. But I'm not ready to spike the football and declare victory. This is a long process, but we're going to be moving very quickly to try to accomplish everything. So what is the deal? We just signed a contract for 25 years with AT&T to build, operate, and maintain a nationwide broadband network in 56 states and territories. They're responsible to build the core and up to 56 brands in those states. So if you remember, what FirstNet brought to the table was $7 billion in cash and 20 megahertz of spectrum. What AT&T as part of this deal is bringing to the table and is now contractually obligated is $40 billion in capital. They're utilizing their over $180 billion in existing assets. They've already guaranteed priority on their existing spectrum holdings for public safety after a state opts in. And they're going to leverage existing towers where it makes economic sense. And in the non-economic areas, we're going to do greenfield towers. And I'm sure everyone in this room is, well, how many is that? Well, I can't tell you because we're still evolving that, because one of the other key components of this contract and our requirements is with every phase of the bill is that there is a rural component. We weren't just going to be content to let them build in LA, Chicago, and New York City for the first few years and then say eventually we'll get out to the remote areas. As most of you know better than anyone, most of this country is rural. So every phase of the build-out has a rural component. And we're going to ensure that that happens. That's where we're enabling by contract. Rural telcos are already under contract with AT&T to start that process. As I mentioned, we are going to use existing towers, but we're also going to go in areas that are not economically viable for a carrier. We're going to drive the market to those rural areas because coverage is just as important as capacity in public safety at times. There's going to be a significant amount of deployables pre-staged throughout the country to enable and man-made natural disasters. for a quicker response to help public safety respond in the most effective manner possible. It's going to be a robust broadband completely built out, and they're contracted obligated to get it completely built within 5 years. Well, how are they going to do that? They're also going to leverage other spectrum that they have holdings, and they're going to run up towers once, is the theory. We're doing everything we can as part of the federal government in partnership with AT&T to enable the time to market to be realized. But public safety can't wait for all the various things to happen. And we heard Chairman Kai talk about some of the regulatory things. We are trying to enable faster time to market. Now, do we have the magic wand that we can wave on right-of-ways and all those kinds of things? Absolutely not. If we did, we'd be waving it vigorously for public safety. But that's not the reality, and you all know that better than anyone. So we are going to be focused on the bill and the additional benefit. You hear a lot about rural and broadband and the federal government. Well, the federal government is investing in broadband technology. This is the first significant thing. Can rural broadband be leveraged and this opportunity be leveraged for some of the other initiatives at the state and local levels? Absolutely, and we hope that that is realized. But the federal government is also working in partnership with the private sector. When I came in, one of the things they recruited me from is from the private sector, and my mantra is I want the private sector to be hugely successful. That's the only way that this model works. And I want everyone in this group and these companies to be hugely successful to keep the economy going. So we are going to put $46 billion between the federal government and AT&T into the marketplace. We're estimating well over 10,000 new jobs are going to be created, and this is a nationwide infrastructure job. So this is something that's significant not only to the U.S. economy, but more importantly to public safety and to the communities and to our families that we rely on public safety to protect us. So we went out and tried to find truly the lowest risk opportunity. The other things that we are doing via the statute is over $300 million was allocated specific to public safety research and innovation for applications and device ecosystems to increase the ability for firefighters to have wearable suits that can transmit biometrics, for the in-building penetrations to be increased. Everyone talks about X, Y, and Z and skyscrapers. All of that technology, we're seeding the private sector with money. They just, PSCR, which is a sister organization, just awarded their first $30 million in grants specific to public safety technology innovation, and we're really looking forward to hopefully some great things. Everyone initially was fixated on FirstNet and the initial deal. But remember, this is 25 years. We at FirstNet also are going to have revenues coming in that we are going to reinvest over the 25 years back into the network. And where is that investment going to be made? Is in technology, into the 5G and then 6G and whatever the technology is in the next 10 to 25 years. Everyone remembers 10 years ago, you know, cell phones, the iPhones and all those types of things wasn't that prevalent. Certainly wasn't prevalent today in public safety, but now you see almost every public safety entity, whether it's their own devices or provided by their departments, utilizing that technology. And it's incumbent on us to get more technology plugged into them. So you can say, well, that's great, Mike, but how do I plug in? What's the addressable market for me? I think there's lots of opportunities for members of this association. You look for, with your infrastructure assets, working with AT&T and their subcontractors, you certainly can focus on year one, day one, but also what's the long-term play. Because we are focused on whatever it takes to enable public safety to have a better response ability, to get the tools and the information and resources to them to be successful. If you have those types of offerings, that's where you're going to have an opportunity, to plug into this deal. Backhaul towers, deployables, innovation. We're starving for more creative ways to get this accomplished. Public safety is very, they're a temperamental customer base, but they're early adopters. When something works, they're all in. You notice that today in the city of New York, NYPD, they have 38,000 officers that have technology on their hips. And it's all completely integrated. So you heard earlier about shot finder. So in the city of New York now, if there's a gunfire incident, shots fired somewhere in the city, the system, the shot finder is triangulating to exactly where that shot is. Instantaneous, once that location is identified, the system goes out and finds, of those 38,000 officers, at any one point there's about 6,000 officers on the street. Instantly to the closest units from that shot, notifies the device on their hips that shots have been fired. And they can start a response even before the first citizen calls 911 to say, I think I heard gunshots. Even before dispatch are saying it, units are able to start responding. If they're going to a location that they've been there before, that same device is telling those officers how many times they've been at that location, if there's been people that they've had formal interaction with, which is by a politically correct term that maybe they've arrested someone in there. There's pictures of those people coming up on their devices. If there's wants and warrants for those people, this is all done within seconds as the response is starting to go. That technology exists today, and it's on a commercial network. So imagine what happens when that technology, you become dependent on it when you're having a Macy's Day, Thanksgiving Day parade, and there's millions of people that you are competing, your device is competing with those people. Well, that's what FirstNet was formed for, to try to alleviate some of those concerns. I'm absolutely convinced that public safety is going to be a benefit of the technology, absolutely a benefit of what you're able to bring to bear, and everyone in this room can have an impact. Everyone in this room and your companies, helping the country, helping public safety, and more importantly, helping our communities and helping our families. So I want to thank you all very much for your time. I know that some people have questions. I already met with a group this morning that peppered me extensively, so I think I'm ready, but you never know. So I'll open it up for questions, but thank you very much for having me. Oh, we do have Mike Trevor.
Sheriff Smith with AGL. I won't pepper you with the questions in particular, but I know that everyone in this room is curious about what has to occur to a tower to be part of this FirstNet network, as far as hardening is concerned, battery backup, and all those types of things. What type of form, what type of rollout of that type of information can these people expect, and where will it come from? FirstNet, AT&T? When will we find out that information?
Wow, great question. Look at the time. I have to, just kidding. So what I did mention is in the next 3 weeks, FirstNet will be delivering to the 56 states and territories the specific plan to how that build-out is going to be in that state. Cost, coverage, and schedule, which also includes the initial siting of the locations, whether it's existing or other towers. So that information is going to be coming to the states, and I would encourage you to reach out to what's called the single points of contact in the state, and that's actually listed on our website. So in the next couple of weeks, June 19th is our target date actually, we are going to be delivering the plans to the governors in all those states that talks about that. The use of existing infrastructure and what sites have to be hardened and what don't. We're more focused on, redundancy and response to incidents. That's why we're also not just heavily relying on terrestrial, but also deployables. All of that information will be out in the next few weeks, and I'd encourage you, if you're part of that. One of the things that also I would encourage is one of the ways that starts this project up, because we will not build out in the state until the governor provides either what's called an opt-in, saying yes, FirstNet and AT&T build and ran in our network, or an opt-out where a state says, you know what, I understand FirstNet and AT&T is going to build the core in our network, but we think we can build a RAN ourselves with another partner, which is called an opt-out, which is a pretty laborious process set up by statute that will take, at least 2 years before any, ground is broken on that. So the specific coverage and towers and those types of things will be coming out in the next 3 weeks. Any other questions?
Today I'm honored to introduce Mayor Buddy Dyer. Mayor Dyer is very focused on smart and utilizing technology and network infrastructure to deliver the promise of smart cities. He's got programs called GreenWorks, and they recently won the Smart City Readiness Grant, which we'll hear about more at 10 o'clock in Gavin at day 3. I'm proud to introduce Mayor Buddy Dyer.
Good morning. They always say you should have that big pause before you start speaking, but I think you're supposed to come out and then have a pause versus having a long pause before you come out. I was getting mic'd up back there. So good morning and welcome to this City Beautiful. It's great to see this unique mix of wireless carriers, infrastructure providers, and professional service companies coming together to discuss and share knowledge of this ever-evolving industry. I want to take a quick moment to thank our conference organizers, the Wireless Infrastructure Show, for bringing this conference here to Orlando. Last year we had 68 million visitors here, but we're always happy to welcome a few more. So thank you for being here, and I know you have an exciting lineup of distinguished guests and experts from many different industries. As a city, we're focused on keeping our residents safe and working to end homelessness, driving economic growth, expanding multimodal transportation offers, and ensuring that we are one of the most sustainable cities in all of America. And we think we're neck and neck with Atlanta for that title in the southeastern United States. We're also focused on incubating technology clusters. We have a great university here at the University of Central Florida, which is now the second largest university in the country. But they're helping us to stay on the cutting edge of innovation in the 21st century. And certainly wireless infrastructure is a very important cluster, an integral part of any city that stands to compete in the 21st century. We find ourselves at an important, exciting time in history when technology innovations are beginning to transform the way we do business and how our cities thrive. And it's beginning to change how our citizens move around cities and changing how we perform as a city government. This morning I'd like to share just a few ways that the City of Orlando is positioning ourselves to be a leader in this transformation. First of all, we realize the government's role in setting the framework and creating policies that enable companies like ourselves to thrive is very important to the residents, businesses, and our visitors. And over the last few years, we've worked to craft policies to provide guidelines for antenna systems that can preserve our aesthetic, but also meet our growing population. We also know that a robust wireless infrastructure will also attract the creative class and economic development. And that's one of our most important aspects as we look at economic development is how we create and maintain the talent pool. To achieve this, the City Technology Management Team has worked to deploy enhanced wireless connectivity at Camping World Stadium, at the Amway Center, and all of our key venues. We've launched an open data portal to enhance transparency and economic growth, and we've outfitted our downtown with a distributed antenna system and much more. In addition, the newest part of our city is Lake Nona. It's also known as the Medical City, and that's just southwest of the Orlando International Airport. It's a high-tech cluster that is home to some of the top 5 medical research institutes, and it's considered one of the fastest-growing communities in the country. Gigabyte data is also part of this community, and with all of the homes and businesses now boasting a wireless speed of 1 gigabyte per second, which is more than 200 times faster than the average American. In 2012, Cisco saw this commitment and named Lake Nona as one of 9 smart connected cities in the world and the only one in the U.S. Earlier this month, I kicked off Smart Orlando, a smart and connected citywide initiative that is becoming an experimental prototype for many cities in the 21st century. We're focused on the use of digital technologies and wireless infrastructure. We realize that in order to have a smart and connected city, we need to have the backbone of robust wireless infrastructure to connect the sensors and distributed technologies that are helping to gather data and analyze that data. Later this morning on the Smart Cities panel, you'll hear from our Sustainability Director, Chris Castro, who will further drive home into what the Smart ORL initiative is. Thank you again for the opportunity to share what Orlando is doing, and I hope you have a wonderful conference today. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. I hope that you enjoyed this morning's speeches. Today's agenda includes breakout sessions in the morning, lunch at 11:55, followed by a speech from Commissioner O'Reilly and the view from the top. More breakout sessions will take place this afternoon. The exhibit hall will open at 3 p.m. and will feature a brand new product demonstration pavilion and a carnival-themed opening reception sponsored by Alliance Corporation and Tycon. This reception is open to all badge holders. It is now my pleasure to introduce the moderator of our session, Peter Murray. Peter was born and raised in New York, New York, and earned a Master's of Business and Information Technology from Fordham University. His major was utilizing technology for competitive advantage. He graduated from Rutgers College, where he majored in communications and minored in parties. He has been a general or regional manager at Verizon, MCI, Level 3, and Telco. He has taught e-commerce and technology for competitive advantage at Temple University and helped develop the entrepreneurial program at the Community College of Philadelphia. At CCP, he taught Introduction to IT and Introduction to Business to inner-city youth and probably learned more there than anywhere else he's been. He has 3 children that text him when they need money. He is the Executive Director of social think tank, Dense Networks. Ladies and gentlemen, Pete Murray.
Well, greetings all. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the mayor's short talk. We have a very esteemed panel today that's focused on the topic of smart cities or smart communities in some cases. If you've been watching closely, AT&T actually calls it smart cities and Verizon calls it smart communities. I'm sure there's a few $1 million worth of strategy there. But let's go on down and introduce the panel. I'm going to let each panelist introduce themselves. To my immediate left is Chris Castro, Director of Sustainability for the City of Orlando.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. As mentioned, I'm working with the Mayor's Office. I'm the Director of Sustainability. I co-chair our new Smart Cities initiative. It's called Smart ORL. And over the course of the last 10 years, I've really worked with various governments, nonprofits, private sector firms, and communities to implement various different types of sustainability initiatives. My focus primarily is energy and utilities and the built environment, but I've started to work on local food systems, solid waste, livability, and the green economy. So pleasure to be here.
Ray Hill with the JMA Wireless.
Good morning. My name is Ray Hill, Vice President of JMA Wireless, been in telecom now for 26 years. And during that time, a few faces in the room, we can certainly say that times they are changing again. And we're going to be talking about what this shows all about is the next revolution in technology, and we're proud to be a part of it. And take a few times.
To his left, Dan Regior with Tavistock Development and Deus Technologies.
Good morning, Dan Regior, in Tavistock Development Company, developer of Lake Nona, 7,000-acre mixed-use development just east of the Orlando Airport. Lake Nona, as mentioned in the mayor's address, gigabit community in Florida, and we're proud to be one of the leading smart cities or smart communities, as the case may be, in the United States. Having been back to WIA, last time I was here was PCIA. Prior to working at the test, I spent some time in cricket, American Conference, so I'm glad to be back.
Okay, and last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Derek Peterson with Boingo.
Good morning, everyone. Derek Peterson with Boingo. I share the CTO for Boingo Wireless. A lot of people know that we do in-building Wi-Fi solutions in a lot of airports. You've probably seen us. In addition to that, what most people don't realize is the vast majority of our revenue comes from in-building cellular networks that we've been doing for a long time. So I'm here to talk about that. I also sit on the board of several standards groups, some of them focused on connected cities advisory board, for example, at the WIA, focusing on trying to bring technology to cities. So enjoying talking about this.
Great. We've also, in the deck, stolen some slides from Dr. Dean Bush at Florida Polytech, who unfortunately had to not make it today at the last minute. But we'll talk a little bit about connected cars as we go through it as well. That's an expert in that area. So I want to mention before we get deep into this that there is a group within the WIA and at forum, the Smart Cities Committee, that is studying these issues. And for me personally, that's what I get the most out of when I work within the WIA and at forum, is to participate in these committees. And as for example, it's not just the technologists on that committee. 3 of the 4 people up here, Chris and Dan and Derek, and raised companies on it. So we didn't want to write it. It's like 5 other committees. It has a lot of that. But the committee really does some meaningful work because in the discussions, we have the real needs of a city, of a community, and then we have companies that provide the infrastructure like Derek's and then some of the carriers and OEMs. And in that, we kind of find a meeting of minds. So that's the spirit that we're trying to bring to you today. So in that regard, we've heard smart about just about everything, right? Everybody has a smart toilet bowl probably by now, right? But the reality is the first step in becoming smart is connecting. So I want to turn to Chris and then ask him a little bit about that. The mayor even mentioned DAS, right? So Chris, how do you see connectedness as part of the evolution of getting smart?
Sure. I mean, honestly, a lot of cities around the country and around the world are trying to define what smart cities and smart communities really truly are, right? What are the verticals? What are the indicators that we can start to measure ourselves off of? And connectivity happens to be the backbone and the framework that everything can play off of. It's almost the infrastructure that we have here that mobile apps can then be added to and simplify our lives. The way that we see smart cities is the evolution of using digital technologies and information and communication technologies and systems to make the critical infrastructure and the services of our city more intelligent, more interconnected, and more efficient at the end of the day. How do we make our government operations more streamlined? How do we save taxpayer dollars, enhance public safety, and at the end of the day, set us up to continue being the leading city in the 21st century, which is a constant competition that attracts the creative class and that drives economic development. So we see connectivity again as kind of the backbone that allows us to play and connect various technologies, whether it's smart waste receptacles, our smart poles, individual buildings, vehicle to grid, our smart vehicles, distributed energy resources, and many, many others that play within the ecosystem of a smart and connected community.
Terrific. And key to this, I think, is to some degree the public-private partnerships. And Dan Rebure in Tavistock, a private development company, took a huge swath of Orlando that was undeveloped and turned it into a smart community, including smart medical. Dan, you want to talk about how you guys approach that and create these public-private partnerships, and then how you partnered with a technology company to achieve the goals?
Certainly. So when Lake Nunham was developed by Tavistock, there's always, as Chris mentioned, the competition. So there's competition among cities, there's competition among communities. So when Lake Nunham was developed, it was very important that we had a set of amenities that was unique, was not available in other parts of Central Florida. So part of that was looking at technology. 20 years ago,
gigabit speeds is now the fourth or fifth or sixth utility, depending on how you count your utilities. So it's very important for us to be able to provide a high-speed internet as a utility grid, as an amenity in our community. So not only do we provide gigabit of internet to our homes and businesses, but partnering with our tenants, our residents, and our partners such as the VA and water system for Florida. We work very closely with our partners to permeate that sense of technology and the sense of technological advancement for our community. So one of the things that we're very proud to have is the VA system. Their National Medical Simulation Center is in Orlando, which is pretty unheard of considering the competition for New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and places like that. So what we've been able to do, working with the VA, is expand technology so that when you move to Lake County, you come to Lake County, and work or live, you're going to have the opportunity to benefit from technology at a very high level, not something that you get in other parts of the state. Part of the reason that KPMG selected us for their Worldwide Training Center, which we announced yesterday, was this culture of technology, culture of innovation. So we're very, very proud to be able to have KPMG as part of it.
So, literally, if you live in Lake Nona, you can get a gig of internet to your home, right? Think about that. So, the driving factors that underlie the need for density, right? We're really going through this stage of densifying the networks to accommodate both the capacity. I think we've done a fairly good job of covering the outdoor. But Dr. Derek, you guys are really dense specialists, right? You take these big venues and you provide that dense network architecture. We're seeing mobility, video. What are you guys seeing in terms of video as a demand on the network and growth? What's going on there?
Yeah, I think we're like most carriers and most operators out there. We're seeing growth continually to exceed our expectations. It used to be we look at a growth of 42% CAGR, combined annual growth rate. Now we're seeing hundreds. There's always that step change where you see it 100, then you're back down to your 42, but it never stops. And I think that because of that, you're constantly looking at new ways to be able to deliver services. And one of the things that was said is very important is we used to deploy networks for coverage, and there's always about coverage, and that's the 2G model, was hey, let's try to cover the whole locations. As we start getting into smaller and smaller locations, and for Boingo it was, well, while all the other networks were being deployed for coverage and towers were going up, we were focusing on areas where you needed density. And so we were focusing on those large venues, stadiums, malls, airports, where there were hundreds of thousands of people and the coverage overlay networks weren't working. So we needed to put in those underlay networks of that dense cell sites so that you could end up meeting those needs. What's interesting is we're now going full circle with that growth that we've seen. We're starting to see that everywhere needs those dense networks. And so cities and communities, as well as the venues and the buildings need it, but it's growing that density of coverage and capacity growth makes it so that density now is the new norm. And it's video, it's everything else, it's all these smart city things that we're trying to accomplish.
I saw Ray look at me, and it's teed up very well. I mean, JMA Wireless is a leader in creating the density, Ray. Talk about also how not only are you focused on that capacity play with the density, but also you're starting to look at the IoT, which is more a coverage piece of that. So you're trying to accommodate both that dense capacity, but also dense coverage, right? Making sure that every little cranny is covered with your product set.
What's interesting about the banks, tags what Dr. Derek said, and that is whether it be what Chris is trying to accomplish in the city of Orlando or a particular 500,000 square foot building maybe trying to accomplish, or maybe an anchoration to that customer like maybe a Brand Hotel or a large bank with hundreds of offices around the United States. Sorry, better? Yeah, thank you. We think that the ultimate goal of a safer, smarter building or city or community, you need to have, look at it from the enterprise perspective, just this for a second. We need to have that dissection completely 100% dissection and alignment of facilities and IT and capital, or non-expense, capital expense. So in many cases, what we find is on the enterprise side of things, is that we really need to get to a safer, smarter building. We'll be talking about densification, public safety, cyber, whatever it might be. But the sweet spot is really where those technologies can converge together on a particular solution architecture set. So you can potentially pull once and enable many things instead of pulling many times to enable many things. And it starts to make more sense for the tier 2 enterprise client. What we know from a building perspective is all we'll know together in the city. And connecting those dots, as Chris and I were talking earlier this morning at breakfast, is really the ultimate goal. But I think it starts with each dot, right? Each facility in and around the city of Orlando, or pick a city for that matter, has similar issues. But some of the issues that they wrestle with is everybody's problem too, and I made a list here. They need to deal with bandwidth and backup. They have asset management and tracking issues. They have safety and security problems, energy efficient possibilities, or remote anchors that they need to fix. Tenant and guest amenities for hospitality and REIT. They need to integrate all these components back to facilities and IT and the CFO all working together, pulling on that same road. And then the last couple of things really is what's that common path forward, whether you're an individual building, University of Central Florida, the City of Orlando, or even rural broadband, which is a whole other thing we can discuss at another time. What's the path forward to embrace all these things together? And how do you connect to the larger environment so you build from smart trash can to a smart city to a smart country?
Again, we have this struggle. I think, Chris, maybe you go to some of these meetings where brilliant people specializing in sustainability, and they talk about the what ifs, but are they grounded in the technologies, and how do you help them come to the reality of the cost, the timing, and then really come up with a solution that solves what those problems are?
Sure.
And I put a few strengths.
Yeah, for us, as I was mentioning, we're still trying to really define what it means to be a smart city. We know that it takes several different verticals, right? It's about our government operations, it's about public safety, it's about energy and utilities, our vehicles, even inclusion of vulnerable and minority communities, and how we can enable that bridging of the digital divide. For us, Orlando has recently been awarded a couple of really exciting grants. One of them is by the Smart Cities Council, and it was a readiness grant, one of 5 cities in the country that was selected in America to begin creating this rubric, essentially the framework around Smart Cities Index, and being able to identify key verticals based on the challenges that we're trying to solve. What indicators can we measure ourselves and hold ourselves accountable to, and how to create a model that other communities and other cities can start to replicate down the road, right? So we're looking at our buildings and how to outfit our buildings with not only connectivity, but enhancing the energy efficiency and the utilities of those. We're looking at on-site generation so that we can start becoming a more resilient city, moving away from fossil fuel generation towards more renewables. We're looking at vehicles and the transformation that we're seeing in the electrification of the transportation sector, and how we push that not only for our fleet, but also public transportation. We're now looking at our downtown bus rapid transit to become an all-electric bus system. Obviously, all of these have a lot of moving parts, and they take capital, and they take, in our opinion, partnerships, usually P3s to make happen. And so what we've been doing is developing several of these partnerships shortly that really are able to leverage each other's strengths and move forward in a vision for our city.
So Dense Networks, we're really focusing very heavily on the smart city, and we have a program called Getting to Smart, and we're actually applying it in cars and some in buildings and a few others. Our next event is June 8th in Philadelphia. We have the city of Philadelphia, kind of a who's who of Philadelphia talking to this topic. But one of the real inspiration of a consultant to one of Dan's partners, Summit Broadband and Cable Bahamas, but they worked and created their own technology company so they can control the technology providing to the community. So you have this option of public-private type of cooperations, and then you have just the vendor relationship. Dan, you want to talk to me about how important that relationship is and why you did it and how it kind of comes about?
provide technologies and menu. And so when we went into the marketplace, we made a decision we wanted to do high-speed internet. We felt that that was something that our residents would be looking for. More and more people are telecommuting, and so we felt that high-speed internet was one of the things that we wanted to make us differentiator and actually fiber to the home. So we talked to the incumbents, who everybody knows, and they were either unwilling or unable at the price point we were looking for. Because again, we are, at the end of the day, developers, and so we need to be able to provide a product to the market. We were not able to find someone in the marketplace, so we reached out to a group called Summit Broadband, who was originally a CLAC here in Orlando, going way back, and they were willing to invest with us in a joint venture in doing the first fiber to the home in Michigan, not Central Florida, but all of Florida. So it was something that Tavistock likes to do, is to be innovative and forward-thinking. But it's very important to find partners who are willing to do that. So we've had that opportunity with Summit. As the mayor mentioned earlier, partnered extensively with Cisco, one of their 5 smart iconic communities in the world. We do a lot of Corning, and obviously, as part of the city of Orlando, we spent a lot of time talking to the city and trying to figure out ways to work together. We're a very large community. We are part of the larger ecosystem of Central Florida, and so it's very important for us that what Chris and the mayor are doing in the city, we're able to work with them to share ideas.
And this, I had this photo of beautiful, idyllic lakes, all that good stuff. But Dan was asking, we were going to build, to the hospitals back over there. There's no streets, there's no thing, but we need that infrastructure there before we break ground, right? So there had to be some really creative business decisions on your partners, which once you can say the fiber will be there, then the hospital will commit. So it's chicken and the egg, right? And that's what these partnerships are really essential. Who's going to commit the capital, right? Who's going to really dig in? But the effect is this. Dan, I've got your numbers up here. They keep growing. But they've attracted the United States Tennis Association. I mean, just read off some of what's going on over there.
Yeah, so we've been very reportive. I mean, we started off basically, the mayor was kind of commissioned. So we started off with a medical city, which was the University of Central Florida's med school. This was their original campus. School in Florida. The latest and the greatest, and frankly, the most beautiful VA hospital I've ever seen. Very, very impressive. Great tribute to our veterans here in Central Florida. The Morris Children's Hospital, which is the only freestanding children's hospital in the city. And then the University of Florida graduate school, a couple of health science graduate schools down there. And then we have San Bernardino, East Coast starting with that, from that, in between building 2,500 homes, we have helped the U.S. Tennis Association's national campus, as well as, I mentioned earlier, KPG. We have a couple of other announcements that I can't quite make yet, but they're all household names. And a lot of this being driven by the infrastructure that's there. So one of the things that Tavistock did early on is we made a huge commitment and a huge capital fiber and duct banks. So all the fiber, all the duct banks, all the conduit in the community are owned and operated by Tavistock. The reason for that is it allows us to provide folks who move into our community, whether they're businesses or residents, with something that they can see their houses. So at the end of the day, it's that piece of, this morning we say it's a piece of glass on the ground. From that, all other things flow.
So you've got, you have planned services, you have putting the infrastructure in advance, and then you have that shared infrastructure model. Dr. Derek, Boingo, obviously in building, well known. Are you guys starting to look at mixed use, out of building, or where's the growth curve for Boingo, and then frankly, shared infrastructure?
Well, I think shared infrastructure and sharing is what we've been doing forever. It used to be when you looked at your business models, and I'll bring it back to business models, it was always, do I have a B2B or do I have a B2C business model? And I remember about 4 years ago, I was sitting on executive session discussing, and I was like, well, what are you trying to do, you know, with some of these carriers? I was like, are you guys trying to go B2C, B2B? What are you doing? Or are you trying to own the networks? What is it that you're trying to do? And the problem is that it's not a B2B or a B2C anymore. It's a B2B to C, right? So you've got to recognize that the relationship is not only with the businesses that you're trying to provide the services, but you're trying to help them provide services for their customers. And you guys have a shared customer. So you're not only required to share the infrastructure, but you're sharing your customer already. Their customer's carrying around a digital device in their pocket or connected to them, and there's multiple players on that digital device that they're working with at all times, that all the over-the-top providers we talk about. But in reality, just like anything, we're sharing that consumer with them, we're sharing it with the city, we're sharing it with the location that they're going into. And so, of course, we need to get to the point where we're willing to share that infrastructure, because we're already sharing that endpoint with each other, so we need to be sharing all those pieces so we can end up building a better collaborative set of solutions for that consumer at the end of the day, that city consumer, that business consumer at the end of the day.
So, it makes a lot of sense, shared infrastructure. So now, what networks, what are we going to pick here to solve our problems? What are the problems? Is there one ubiquitous? Cisco recently, the BNI came out and they projected that, all this hype on 5G, and I don't want to rain anybody's 5G parade here, but, less than 2% of total traffic is going to be covered by, according to Cisco, by 5G in 2021. All right, that's their numbers came out in February. All right, so all those millions and millions of hype, where are we driving, right? So we've got some practical needs, between now and then. And I don't think we're going to find 5G to solve all our problems because we have 4G investment out there and it's still amortized. But looking at all these technologies, Ray, you've got centralized data, so you can lay a blanket and help leverage smaller facilities. We heard that point where the big facilities being served. Talk a little bit about the roadmap, about how JMA is actually reaching out now, trying to incorporate IoT frequencies in the box and in what they're going to do.
Well, thanks. Love the slide. It's not a question of which network, it's a question of what do we have at our disposal with the Zigbee or Bluetooth or the Ethernet or public safety or cellular or Wi-Fi or all of it. It's a mishmash of everything, 5G, 4G. So the question becomes is more of a convergence than anything else being. And then we have on the other side of it, we have all these potential conduits that can house the data. We have all these things in the end that's going to use the data. So to me, it comes down to really two things: the network connection options, right, based on the R chart of options that are up there, and then the interaction between the different device types that are on the other side of the equation. So the device types of things, you can have your mobile devices, mobile machines, stationary machines, IoT gateways, sensors. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. What we have to do is mash it all up and be, I guess, as much as possible the conduit which it runs on. So in order to do that, you need to provide an architecture that can not only make one of these things work in the building, but also give you a path forward so you can enable several things on the same pipe and power those as well. There's a product called Fuse that some of you have heard of, some of you may not. And the point of the whole thing is that we don't really care what's powered. We want to do it in a digital electricity, low voltage environment, so that at the end of the day, you can be able to PoE plus out to the edge and back, regardless of what device you're trying to connect to. So again, back to the enterprise point of view, which is really what we need to be thinking, is if they could do something like that and power things at the edge, security cameras, Wi-Fi access points, digital signs, point of sale systems, doesn't matter, as long as it has an IP address and it's PoE plus, how can we enable those things from the customer's perspective, want an architecture that can handle it, power it cheaply, and then, and by the way, also be able to cellular the public safety side of things as well. So that's where we are today with JMA, and that's what we're looking forward to in the future. And then, you have a slide on that coming up soon here, but that to me makes up the fourth utility. It is all wireless. It's not cellular centric, it's not Wi-Fi centric, it is all those networks that Pete had on the slide before. that we need to address, because from the customer's point of view, that's what they have today, and that's what we need to support today.
It's almost similar to like the energy industry where you don't have a silver bullet, right? There's not going to be a silver bullet, and it's really a diversification of how we're going to power ourselves and how we're going to connect ourselves and get to the reliability and connectivity that we want.
Well, a good point, and I sort of bring up now, right? We're all pretty comfortable that we're densifying, right? That's a big push. We're all bringing the register, hopefully, with the densification. But this next is this miniaturation, is smart, right? And it's IoT, it's sensors. It's not big bandwidth necessarily, right? Unless the thing is video, right? But so you've got that. How as you go forward, how does your transportation department and public works, how do they coordinate, we need these type of sensors and it needs to operate on Bluetooth or it's going to be on an LM, how do you help bring that together? Is it just that early that it's...
Truthfully, I think that's something above me at this point in time. Our CIO and head of technology management for the city is really trying to better understand what that kind of least common denominator communication system is for all of these different types of sensors, whether it is our smart parking meters on our roadways. We're now outfitting Bluetooth readers within our parking garages. In terms of energy, back to kind of where my strength is, we have these building automation and control systems as it relates to utilities, lighting, plug load management, HVAC, things of that nature. And these systems have now gotten to a point where we have named back that regardless of the carrier, quote unquote, or the company's solution, they're able to communicate through APIs and come back to a central database so that we can optimize how we're performing in real time, right? And I think the same thing is going to happen as it relates to IoT and all of the sensors that we're going to be deploying throughout our cities, because they're going to come back to a central database so that they can be analyzed. Sometimes they can analyze at the edge and be able to provide predictive analysis or whatever might be needed, but some of it come back to the central database and then deploy so that we can make better informed decisions, right, as a city.
And I won't go near the privacy issues that we're all have to struggle with.
Privacy, security, privacy.
Yeah, and that's not what we're here to talk about. But Dan, you have this beautiful community now, right? You are ahead of the curve with densification by all means. They literally have their own towers, their own DAS, their own fiber, so they really got this. Now we're into this next phase of going smart, right? And I think I have a slide a little later, actually we'll touch on that now. You're going smart, so you're coming from the home out, right? And I've had the privilege of touring this, if you ever get a chance, go out and see it. But talk a little bit about, how you're smart now, how you're making residents smart, and how health is a major consideration.
Right. So at the end of the day, and I don't mean to kind of beat this as a dead horse, but it's the amenity and it's the experience for our residents. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're focused on. So the next stage kind of in our evolution is we have the infrastructure. As Peter mentioned, we've got DAS and towers and fiber and all that sort of thing. So now it's how do we what else can we bring to our residents and our residential users? And so one of the things that we've been focused on lately is health and wellness. With 4 hospitals on our campus, that's a concern. Obviously, it's a macro concern that everyone is thinking about now. So one of the things that we developed just recently was our wellness home of information and technology. And there's information available on this on the website, which is askwit.com. And really what we were trying to do is identify the next generation of technology for the average home. And these are not multi-million-dollar homes. Our average home is about $400,000, which is a little bit above the median for Orlando. So what we're doing here is saying, all right, well, what technology do people want? Because one of the concerns that we always fear is kind of the big brother-esque, or is it too intrusive? So what we're always focused on is making sure whatever technology we introduce in the home enhances the user's experience, enhances the resident's experience. It isn't burdensome. So what's shown in the picture is there's a prototype that the GE appliance built for us, and it's really pretty cool. It doesn't get hot yet, but the next one's going to be. It's a cooktop, but it's the cooktop that's the center of the home. Because as you all know, over the last 10, 15 years, the kitchen has become the center of the home, and builders now recognize that. So maybe 30, 40 years ago, if you bought a home, it was the formal dining room and the formal living room. Now it's just a big kitchen that leads into a big family room. And so what GE built for us was this interactive cooktop. Not only helps you prepare meals with recipes and guidance, it keeps track of your pantry. It has a web browser, so if you are preparing the meal and your kids are doing their homework, they're sitting right there. They're not in their room doing God knows what. They're able to interact on the internet while you're kind of keeping an eye on and interacting. Part of what we want to do with technology like this is also engage our community. So we have a couple of restaurants in our campus, and so one of the ideas that will go in the next generation of this is having the chefs in these restaurants provide us with healthy recipes, cooking tips, and that nature. That's just one example. The other thing we're focused on very heavily with is, and they like known as aging in place. As the baby boomers continue to get older, major focus in healthcare is keeping those folks in their homes. It's far more cheaper to have someone in their home than it is to have any sort of assisted living. So a lot of the technology that we're focusing on in the next iteration of WIP, which is coming up soon, is technology that allows people to stay home. So it's as simple as, are they opening the refrigerator every day? Are they using the restroom? Are they getting out of bed? Are they taking their medicine? And these are all very macro or micro solutions that are utilized with sensors. It's very, very simple, and it's not very obtrusive, and it allows the older person to keep their sense of independence, but it allows the ultimate caregiver, who are going to be folks like us, to say, all right, well, Grandpa got out of bed, he went and cooked himself some breakfast, and now he's watching TV. So Grandpa's probably okay. But if you go a day where you don't see any of that activity, then you probably can give Grandpa a call, drop by your shoes. So it's the utilization of technology to enhance life experience.
And when I toured this thing, right, some of the technologies you mentioned, the smart toilet bowl, I mean, that's literally, there's one.
We have a smart toilet bowl.
There's a smart toilet bowl that blew me away. There's a pill bottle that basically counted, your prescription inside and kind of locked based on, your daily dose, and I mean, just so many other things that I can rattle on that I was just completely blown away by the way that if you are here for a couple more days, try to take a tour of the WIA home. It's not too far from where we're at here.
Or make it a point to come back and say I was on the tour as well a couple of times. That's some amazing things. But at your point, well, my takeaway is not just for grandma and grandpa, but brushing the teeth, combing their hair, all the things that a lot of us in this room have parents. If you're fortunate enough that they're still with you, they're 80. Right? And some of the things we don't even think about in terms of being productive and aging in place. This type of technology, just from a healthcare perspective, allows them to maintain a sense of dignity and allows us as their children or grandchildren to make sure that grandpa's okay. The other thing that I noticed in the smart home that hit home here, that I think is a real important application, is there was a room designed, if I remember correctly, for a little girl who suffered from severe respiratory issues, let's say asthma, right? And this bedroom was designed to cater to this little girl's needs. And let's say she got a sinus infection or ear infection or what have you. The equipment is in the smart home package, this particular healthcare piece, where the doctor and the nurse could see for the ear infection virtually and have a script delivered to the door, and the little girl never left the bed. It's pretty amazing stuff that's going on. And the second thing that and we've only just begun. So what I then thought was, sorry to make this point, what I then thought was, and I was talking to Dr. Derek about this earlier, it's okay, that's awesome, really, for the home, not to mention the smart garage and everything else, right? But how does that apply more in a commercial scenario, where it's not necessarily just a bedroom or a house, but it is a corporate facility that has health and wellness programs for employees, or maybe it's a 300-bed hospital where you really light up some of these applications. Or maybe it's a hospitality, or maybe a transportation hub, or whatever. How do these little things, and these little huge things, things that we saw in the smart house, apply and scale up on a commercial level? How can we as an industry, back to densification of networks, and all the different choices that we have to enable these things, mashing them so it makes sense? These are the things you can do with that text network that benefits not only the carrier, the 3PL, but the end user. And the the enterprise that actually has that facility. This is some fascinating stuff that's going on right now.
So, when you take it down to the micro level of small bits, there's huge ramifications to health and family life. One of the applications that smart counter thing is pretty interesting. I never cook, actually, I just play with it. Literally, you could be making dinner and you get little Johnny and call him and he says, yeah, Mom, I should be home in 15 minutes. Then you can hit his GPS and see that little Johnny is not where he said he was, right? You can track where he's going. So, you can take care of Grandpa, but you can also kind of keep an eye on Johnny and keep him honest. And I think now that he knows that the whole family can track him, maybe he's going to be a little bit more truthful. So you've got these micro type of apps that utilize the network. Let's bring it back to density again, since that's the name of my company. We'll say it on the time. But here's an interesting statistics, right? At the Super Bowl 2 years ago, we had 27 terabytes of data, JMA Wireless Teco data system, in fact. Congratulations on that one. And then in last year, they both have about 72,000 fans. Right, so went into overtime, regrettably, it turned out wrong. In the Super Bowl 51, we had 37 terabytes. So we saw basically 50% growth year over year in utilization. Derek, you guys are experts at this. How do you blend the DAS, the Wi-Fi, or other tools in the headnet that you need to start incorporating into these solutions? Are venues or cities asking you to give us more? Put IoT in here. What's the trend, and how can these folks, better address this and make more money?
So the trend is definitely more and more and more. And as we talked about before, it's all the networks. So we're not just deploying Wi-Fi or cellular or DAS. We're deploying small cells. We're deploying IoT networks. We've got around all of them, and it's required in these locations. I guess one of the key things is the monetization strategies that we have to end up deploying. And I think when you start to deploy these very large networks and you're trying to service all of these different people inside of a venue like a Super Bowl, and we do the Chicago Bears Stadium, it's amazing the evolution. We've been managing that since the late 90s for them, and started off as like a 3-sector DAS, and now it's up to 27-sector DAS, millions of dollars in Wi-Fi and an additional IoT overlay over everything so that you can do all the operational things. But what's important about that is all of those things come together, and then you have to say, okay, well, how am I going to pay for this? And this is where the hard part comes in, is trying to figure out, if we're going to build this great city in Orlando or in the lake, I have to come up with a way to monetize that. And you can't choose one way. You have to realize that you have to be multifaceted in your approach with the monetization strategy, just like you're multifaceted in your approach with the technology strategy. So it goes hand in hand, I think, figuring out both the technology strategy as well as the financial strategy. And the reality is you're never going to have enough money to build everything that you want at once. So what's important is that you establish a platform in the beginning, and you set up your platform so that as time goes by, you have saved yourself some of the headache of adding a bunch of additional money because you don't have a platform. And so one of those key components to the platform today that's available to us is a mobile edge computing platform or an NFV platform. Putting in these additional pieces of equipment to help do things like caching or take away some of the load from the backhaul and or be able to adjust to the changes and virtualization being the key factor there, so that we start off with one solution, but we can end up putting in a software solution and change things over time without having to go rip and replace all of the different network components that we have out there.
Well, I remember your original business model was very advertising leverage, the airport, right? How is that evolving? Is advertising still part of the economics? Is that a way to make this?
So just to look at Wi-Fi is a good example in an airport. So if you go back 10 years ago, or 2001, so that's 15 years ago when Boingo got into the whole wireless game. It was primarily Wi-Fi. It was about trying to provide a service with a laptop, allowing people to connect. And we were charging $49, sometimes $79 per session. And it was a consumer-based service. It was a high-end service that you provide for a consumer. If you fast forward, and when I got to Boingo in 2012 and became the CTO, one of the things that I noticed was we had to change. We were seeing 3% of the amount of people going through an airport. So you're talking millions and billions of consumers going through an airport, and you're seeing 3% of them. And you realize that you need to change your monetization strategy. And the first step in changing your monetization strategy is realizing there's a 97% of the people who are going through that menu who you're not touching. And you need to get through and make sure you're touching all of those people. So we had to change our monetization strategy. How do I get the other 90% of the people, plus percent of the people to connect? Well, we've got to stop charging $79 per connection, and we've got to start offering other ways of monetization. Advertising was one of them. Again, get somebody to pay through advertising, all of a sudden I've got a new way to be able to monetize and get people connected. We do things what we call our American Express or MasterCard bill, where it's an amenity for your American Express or MasterCard wireless connectivity at an airport. Is an amenity that they pay for, the credit card companies pay for you to be able to have free service. That's yet another way to monetize an individual who's going through the airport. We also created Passpoint, and we have Wi-Fi now as when you're one of the three out of four carriers, when you go in one of the airports, you automatically connect to Wi-Fi, and you don't know that you're doing it, but your cell phone's doing it for you. And there's monetization coming from that, which we call Wi-Fi roaming today. So it's about trying to find all of those new bits and pieces of money, and then it's the tenant services, the private services, and all that. Finding all those pieces, putting it in, and once you put them all together, it ends up letting you do a step change. You had to make up that $79, but you're able to put all of these new monetization strategies together, and then you're able to go to $90, $100, and over time, because now you're seeing 97% of the people, or you're seeing that miss of people, you're able to provide additional services that you weren't able to before.
So you've got that advertising. Chris, as a city, how do you look at, how you've got Creative Village that's going to roll out, right? 68 acres? Yeah. So, big facility right downtown, the university's coming, all these young people, vibrant. How are you planning to subsidize the network? Is it just the carriers free-for-all, or how does the city get involved in that? And then does the city want to allow advertising, social promotion to help subsidize that cost?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the aesthetic of Orlando is something that's near and dear. And so you go to New York and advertising is just rampant. It's all over the place, and that's a lot of the reasons why they're able to pay for a lot of these technologies. We have looked at a lot of different models around the country, one of them being Kansas City, that had a P3 partnership where they were able to provide on-street kind of wayfinding and digital signage, and as well as Wi-Fi boosting. And the initial upfront cost had nothing to do with taxpayers, right? And I think that's the type of win-win situation that I think a lot of cities, including Orlando, are trying to realize. We know that the demand for these types of connectivity is there. We know that that's what's going to attract the right people, which will therefore attract the right businesses to our region. But at the same time, we're finite and limited in terms of the resources, financial resources that we can provide to roll this out. So it's kind of a constant juggle. We are investing in certain kind of key initiatives like parking infrastructure. I think has been one that the public has really demanded more advancement in. But as you start to look at Creative Village, I do think that there's going to be P3 opportunities for us to identify that in terms of advertising. I think that's something we're going to have to grapple with.
Not visual, push.
Sure, push the phone, exactly. I think that's something that we would be okay with.
And then the other option, Ray, I just put up visually, how you converted the big bell. Right here you have, to me, the golden app, garbage here. Right, we're going to have to take care of garbage and waste on the streets, but we need more and more infrastructure, and we could use some revenue, right? So JMA is partnered up with the big belly people to create an infrastructure infrastructure.
Yeah, explain that one, right? I went out on a high on diet, so a little bit here about 6 months. But no, the question becomes, think of it this way, where you have a lot of people that converge, whether it be a first stop, a college campus, outside of Shingle Creek, what do you need? A trash can. Well, that's on the golf course yesterday, there was no trash can raised. He was saying that he felt like he was in a rat race with 8 kids in a minivan with all the bottles and Gatorades, gift bags and everything else. The point is that you need a place to put trash, and it's in a can. So if that's true, and you put a trash can where there's a lot of people that converge, typically, maybe outside the metro stop in New York City, you may need something like that. There's a smart can that will tell the public works truck when to come empty it. Doesn't let them come, right? Trash can number 2 is sitting next to it. Obviously, if you see the cutaway on the bottom left, you'll see the jam here, which fits into that. Zen5 is one of our partners, so we're working with them on some specific applications in New York City. And between those 2 trash cans, if you choose, you can enable a mast that becomes a small cell node, as you like, and the height can vary depending on zoning and your coverage and capacity requirements. You can enable your carriers, you can enable POE Plus, so you can attach the things you see at the top right and many more to this trash can that sits in the middle of convergence of humanity. So it's one of those crazy simple ideas that to me seems to be real relevant to solve for a place where you have some significant zoning issues, but at the same time you have a juxtaposition of humanity at a crossroads right there outside that metro stop at 34th Street.
I love it. We love the idea because street furniture is something that we want to start decluttering, right? And there's so much rollout of new technologies that, at the end of the day, we're trying not to just have, our streets cluttered with a lot of stuff. So being able to combine those technologies will help us achieve kind of all of the things we're trying to do.
I want to leave time for questions, but this is a cool slide, so I had to use it. Okay? But I want to touch on connected car and autonomous vehicle because ultimately when we get smart, this is the big gee whiz event, right? How is the city, you touched on it, Central Florida, we have NASA, we have so many resources, and it was about $100 million just went into the Central Florida.
Maybe partnership. Yeah, so the U.S. Department of Transportation late last year released an RFP for cities, and over 170 cities applied, and they chose 10 to be proving ground destinations for new vehicle technologies. And Orlando, what we did is we developed a regional partnership that included many different government agencies from NASA Kennedy Space Center, Port Canaveral, our Expressway Authority, the Florida Turnpike, FDOT, the City of Orlando, Tip of the Spear, our major universities, Florida Polytechnic, as well as UCF. And the whole effort was called the Central Florida Automated Vehicle Partnership. And essentially, our approach was how can we use closed environment testing at NASA Kennedy Space Center for runways and the back of roadway networks through a Space Act agreement, which we got. And then there's what's called SunTrax, which is a $40 million essentially test track, 2.5-mile test track, almost like I did Daytona Speedway. I don't know if you have a slide. That essentially will test everything from freight, 18-wheelers, single automobile, bus transit, bicycling, and pedestrian technologies. And in the middle of this track is essentially a mock smart city where several sensors and technologies will be deployed, and vehicles will start to test out how they communicate with the street light, with the stop sign, with a bicyclist on the side of the road, with a pedestrian who has a smart device, with other vehicles around them, right? And how, as we start to roll out the inevitable transition towards electric and connected vehicles, we start to forecast and simulate them in the lab, and then start to roll them out in closed environment testing. And then we actually have agreements with Florida Turnpike and Central Florida Expressway Authority to roll those out into the real world environment. So it's a really exciting new kind of movement that we're making in Central Florida. We're already speaking with many of the vehicle manufacturers from General Motors and Ford, Daimler, Nissan, and others who are coming down to Orlando within this summer and in the coming weeks just to start talking about what are the opportunities for partnership as it relates to this. And of course, network and activities will be an integral part
It used to V2V, that's the new one, right?
Vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to grid, technology, vehicle to infrastructure, all of V to X, what we call it, right?
Yes.
V to X is what we're researching.
So pretty cool stuff. It is coming. This is still Dr. He couldn't make it. I think his slide. But really, he's saying more or less the crossover around 2040. So hopefully I'll have an autonomous wheelchair at that stage. That said, let's turn it over to the audience and any questions out there? Anybody want to get smart?
Somebody.
No, you don't have to. I got your essay is there. Here you go.
Anyone up there care to wade into the connection between what you're talking about and land use policy? In other words, a lot of these innovations in smart technology is going to be influencing design of the environment. So, issues that cities deal with, parking requirements.
Yep. Sure. Yeah, I mean, we're actually starting to look at this as well. Part of kind of the roadmap of Smart Orlando is going to be looking at our comprehensive plan and the land development code to see what areas we need to modify in order to keep up with the times, right? And I think technology is advancing way faster than we can even keep up as government. And that's what we don't want to do is hold back the realities that are happening. We want to kind of evolve with those realities. And so we are, part of our road mapping exercise that we're working on this summer, we'll be looking at our comprehensive plan, our land development code, our municipal planning board guidelines, and figuring out, how can we modify and improve upon these so that we can embrace this revolution that we're in, and we can, again, back to enhancing quality of life, attracting the creative class, attracting businesses. It all comes back to being a competitive city and community and driving economic growth. And luckily, all of these intersections will allow us to do that.
One other quick comment, one other quick comment would be is that it's incumbent upon not just WIA, but other organizations, right? It's on us too, right, to reach out and talk to the Orlandos of this world and have those discussions at maybe the NATO conferences or the local state events where we have the discussions about, well, how do we get to smart from the logistics, permitting, process perspective? Because we can sit up here and talking all day long, but if you're coming up permitting for 18 months, we missed the bus. That's smart bus.
Yeah, that's right. Dan, any final thoughts from the perspective of a developer and how technology is going to help drive smart communities in the future?
Well, yeah, I think it's partnerships with the communities, and we're very fortunate to be part of the city of Orlando, which is one of the leaders in this area. And again, then for us, it's just, and I haven't really mentioned too much about economics, very good point. It also makes sense economically as well. So we are visited by vendors every week with every possible product and solution that you can imagine. But at the end of the day, it has to make sense for our residents and our visitors. There's got to be some sort of economic benefit to it. So, having core infrastructure, pays for itself. And we're starting to develop a lot of retail. And so it's one of the things that help enhance that environment, but that are also economically viable. So that's something we always have to do.
Dr. Derek, any final thoughts?
Not really. Enjoy being here, thanks.
Dr. Derek will be appearing in what's your next?
Yeah, right over here. That's why I'm going to make it short. I'm supposed to be connected.
Yeah. So thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you down the road. Thank you.
Thank you to our panel. The next panel in this room is low-power, wide-area end-to-end networks, and will be taking place in this room today.
Okay, so say your name and company.
Yeah, it's Jim Lockwood with Aero Solutions in Boulder, Colorado.
Okay, Jim, we're at the WIA show, and you're the chair of the, so say who you are, what the committee is and what you...
Yeah, I chair the Smart Communities Committee for the HetNet Forum Innovation Technology Council. And this is a group of industry executives and vendors and clients, for that matter, that are coming together and really trying to identify what are the biggest hurdles for communities to understand in implementing and deploying small cells in a more densified network.
How many people are on the committee?
We have approximately, we have I think about 18 members on the committee. That includes private industry, it includes municipalities, and it includes academics.
Excellent. And what are some of the focuses of the committee?
Well, the committee is focused certainly on infrastructure. That's a very big topic today in terms of the cost of infrastructure, the speed of deploying infrastructure for small cells, as well as the architecture of the infrastructure. And that could be, in our case, what we call street furniture, new poles, smart poles that have a lot of different features, everything from security to certainly then also wireless coverage, and then also more disguised structures that have more to do with street level kiosks, smart bins.
Can you give an example of a street furniture application?
Sure can. A more specific example that I know very well firsthand is an application that we were able to deploy in the city of Denver. It's called the City Pole, and this is a smart pole that designed for Verizon. That they gave us some specifications on what's really critical for them in the city of Denver, and developed for them as a fit really into the cityscape, and ended up being deployed and accepted through 19 different agencies in Denver. Another example would be City of Austin. We're working in this case directly for the City of Austin, and helping them identify with an urban architect in the city what are some features of how the small cell deployments can best fit onto their infrastructure, existing infrastructure, whether through shrouds, and of course the balance something that's attractive architecturally, but also is effective and does not deployment.
Once in a while it clips, I didn't touch it. If you move it forward, like just a little, so your arm
Okay.
doesn't hit.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure, it's clipping, I hadn't done it before.
Is that not working in terms of sound bites? 'Cause I'm kind of
no,
going
you're
on.
Right on. No,
okay.
You're right on.
Okay.
Just that one, unfortunately, clip. So
Okay. I can repeat if I need to.
Yeah. Actually, tell the Denver story one more time. Perfect.
Yeah, I think a good example of street furniture that we have firsthand involvement in is City of Denver. City of Denver, we worked with Verizon in developing what's called the City Pole. And City Pole is a smart pole that was developed by our group to really fit into the architecture of the City of Denver. Very slender, very little impact to the right-of-way, and what really transpired is that particular structure, we worked closely with the city and through Verizon, and it was accepted by 19 different agencies in the City of Denver, and basically has been a success as far as we certainly have been told by Verizon and the city in terms of unobtrusive smart pole.
And what is the benefit of a smart pole? What specifically does it do that would make it a benefit?
Yeah, a smart pole. The benefit is it's a node. It's carrying a node, a wireless node, typically a small cell. In this case, at about 35 feet in the air, and very low power requirements. And it's providing coverage throughout the city of Denver. Now there's 340 of these going into Denver, so you can imagine it, if it's not designed well, it's going to be something that really stands out poorly. And so a smart pole generically though can go much further than just having a node for wireless coverage. It's a great vehicle as well for lighting, replacing lighting, LED lighting, and as well as a lot of sensors that can be added to these poles. And that's kind of where things are going, adding sensors that can be used for security, public safety, and not just more wireless coverage.
That's cool. That'll get into the other part.
So what I'm doing is some of it's just promo, you know,
Yeah.
for these guys, and then some that I do my own dense network stories that I'm doing on smart cities.
Okay.
So I'm going to do one on street furniture.
Okay.
And so look, those, you know,
Great.
Gelman says this, and you, and then in your case, you send me a piece of art on the smart pole.
Okay.
Like what it looks like.
Yeah,
or
great.
even the deployed one.
Yeah.
A couple of three, and then we'll just, as you're talking,
Beautiful.
we'll have you, then we'll cut
Nice.
away from you, show boom, boom.
Okay.
But that, it's like a mini commercial, but it fits the narrative. You're not
Perfect.
shoving anything down anybody's throat. you
So
know?
needed.
That's
Thank
that's
you.
the way we try. That's what I'm trying to do. It's
Yeah.
fun when you get it right.
Yeah.
Half the time. Half the
Yeah.
time. Some people can't talk without being a commercial.
Sure.
Okay, so we're just going to go back again and say what is a HetNet and why is the HetNet forum?
Yeah.
You know, and focus on some of the companies besides or governments besides us technology guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I think attracts new members is that you have like the city of Orlando, you have these different folks that participate.
Yeah.
Not just us technologists selling each other. Okay, so you're good.
Yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit about the HetNet Forum. I was asked to be a member of the HetNet Forum. I think it's been 3, maybe 4 years ago, and this has been a tremendous learning curve for not only me, but I think for all the members of the forum. And it's been a group of members that have gotten together. We've more specifically, it's through the Innovation Technology Council of the HetNet Forum, and we identify really what are some of the biggest challenges that are needed to be addressed to help deploy a densification in wireless networks with small cells and DAS for that matter. Members of the HetNet Forum are not only technology companies and equipment companies, but it's also members have expanded into municipalities that are at least certainly part of the working groups of these members that are putting together white papers and sharing white papers that get out into the community. Other members include academics, so that are focused on training and bringing that back into the universities and creating online courses to help really bring the workforce up to speed in the wireless industry and other people into the wireless industry. So HetNet has actually expanded from what started out, in my view, as a very technical group of people looking at defining 5G into an outreach group that's really realized that unless we can get some white papers written and get them really written in a language that municipalities and CIOs can understand, we're not going to communicate. There's not enough of us to communicate and travel to communities without these white papers being produced. So the HetNet Forum has been I think it's been very successful. The amount of downloads from the WIA website, the amount of documents going out among the members to their clients and by the industry itself has been very positive.
It's funny, I was just
Should I mention APC at all or no? Just IDEA. Just mention IDEA.
Whatever you're comfortable, you can do it
Yeah.
a minute of that.
My name is Danny Agresta, President and CEO of APC Towers, based in Raleigh, North Carolina. I am also the co-chairman of the IDF. And the purpose of the IDF is to gather a diverse group of small, mid-size, and some of these companies are national, wireless infrastructure developers, and we created a forum for education and networking. These developers build a lot of sites, and they play a critical role in enabling the next generation of wireless networks to the consumers. When we put the program together, we focus on bringing experts in from financing or technology to provide and share to share ideas and to provide what's the word? Man.
Hi, I'm Keith Kazmarek. I'm with InPhase Wireless. Also, I support a number of other companies, for instance, Aero Solutions. Been involved with the Wireless Industry Association for many, many years and involved with the Innovation Technology Committee, which is really a great committee. It's a great opportunity to put some of the technical experience and knowledge from the industry together to bring together white papers that can help explain what's going on in the wireless industry. And as we've all seen, this has been a great industry to be a part of. We've seen massive growth, from the inception of the first big phones that we all carried around to what we all carry in our pockets today, which are massive computers in a lot of ways. So it's a great industry to be a part of, and really appreciate the opportunity.
What are some of the work you've done with the ITC?
Yeah, the ITC has been great. I mean, I worked on a couple of different papers. Most recently, we worked on a paper focused on rural America. What are the needs and the capabilities that rural America has as it relates to broadband wireless? I come from a small
So just, when you're ready, just say your name, title, and where you work.
All right. Tom Kane, President of Network Building and Consulting, headquarters in Elk Ridge, Maryland.
Tom, what do you do here with the IDF or with the panel, which is the group?
Sure. So participated in the show for a number of years, many years, as a member of the association. It's been a great show. We sponsored this year the View from the Top as the session sponsor, which we've sponsored for a number of years. It's a great marketing opportunity for us, hundreds and hundreds of professionals in the room to listen to the tower company CEOs, which is a fantastic marketing opportunity we've taken advantage of, as I said, for a number of years here at the infrastructure show.
And what type of work have you done on some of the committees and type of people you interact with besides just the leaders of the big tower companies?
Sure, we have not this year, but we have sponsored some panels, participated in a few panels. We certainly attend a number of sessions. The other thing we have been involved in just recently is being added as a member of the Technology Council of WIA, and in that, within that group, I have worked on one of the recent white papers for 2017. There's several white papers being developed, and I was asked to participate in one of the white paper committees. We just actually met yesterday, and our white paper on infrastructure, wireless infrastructure in rural America, which will be published, I believe, this week. So that was some interesting work we did on behalf of, I think, the industry, and spearheaded by the association, which is one of the reasons we stay so involved with WIA at NBNC.
And didn't they have companies besides just the tech companies, they had companies like John Deere involved?
Exactly. Yeah, many companies. I know in fact, you're right, Peter. John Deere was involved on our committee because it's addressing telecommunication needs in rural America for things like precision farming, which the John Deere was very active, actually very active, obviously, in that development of that, the protocols and the technology needed for that to be fully implemented in rural America. And there's several other committees that have been formed, as you know, with a very wide range of different companies throughout, not just wireless infrastructure companies, but companies that care about and rely on, I would say, telecommunications development in the United States.
So did you learn the latest and greatest on regulation and advancements? What are some of the key takeaways when you leave here?
The show in general, you mean? Yeah, there's, the one thing I would say is the panels and the sessions that the association sponsors and puts on at these shows are tremendous. Really, some of the most well-versed people in our industry are here. I try to attend as many of them as possible. It's actually, they're so jam-packed, you want to attend all of them. Challenging sometimes to see them all. Yesterday, I sat in on a great panel about what's coming with millimeter wave, which is cutting edge. People are, in our side of the industry are trying to figure out what's coming, and we had a great panel of true experts that could, tell us what they see in the next 5 years. Sat in on the analyst panel yesterday talking about the tower stocks and the carrier stocks and where those companies are headed, and several more great panels will be were yesterday and today. So a lot of regulatory work being discussed on the panels, a lot of conversations on some of the panels too about the mergers and acquisitions environment in our industry, which is, folks like myself and other members of the association need to really try to stay in front of to what's happening in our industry.
Perfect.
Good?
Yeah. He walked out just a
There you
second
go.
ago. No panic. Okay, so I hear you. Just try one more time. Say your name.
Bob Page, Vertical Bridge.
Okay, Bob. We're at the WIA conference. You've been coming for years. What do you find most interesting about the WIA? Why do you come to the conference?
For me, coming to WIA is great because you get to meet a lot of people and set up a lot of meetings in one place, as well as get to learn about a lot of new information and hear from your colleagues in the industry about what they're up to.
And what type of people do you meet?
We meet with everyone. We meet with obviously our tower company partners, our vendors. We meet with new companies who come to the industry and offer new services, as well as some of our actual tenants are here.
And you're presenting today or yesterday?
I did not present at this conference.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah.
All right, well then I'm going to ask you a few more questions in particular. Vertical Bridge is and Digital Bridge is focused on building this infrastructure play. Can you describe what you guys are doing?
Absolutely. For Digital Bridge, the focus is really on the 4 pillars, as they like to call it, of infrastructure. The first being towers, second being small cell and DAS networks, third being data centers, and really the fourth being fiber and connectivity.
Okay, so you're pretty much one of the first movers to trying to bring that entire infrastructure together. Can you talk about how you see the growth of bandwidth and that demand on networks?
Sure. So as we've already begun to see, network growth continues to increase exponentially. We believe that with the next generation of wireless networks, that demand will grow even greater. We're starting to see some of that with the unlimited plans that we've seen AT&T and Verizon recently offer, and FirstNet also being a key near-term driver of that demand.
Expand a little bit on FirstNet. How much new network is going to go up for FirstNet, and how does that impact the towers?
I think that's a great question. For us, we're still in a little bit of wait and see mode. Obviously, the states have to opt in, opt out, which is coming up in the near term. After that happens, clearly AT&T has a mandate to grow the network and to create this network for FirstNet. We believe it will create increased demand for us, but at this point, it's pretty hard for us to quantify what that demand looks like.
Okay, so video is a big driver.
Absolutely.
How do you see the impact of over-the-top services on the infrastructure?
Sure. I would say that first and foremost, when we think about over-the-top services and we think about video, and we think about how it impacts the tower industry, the whole push for a net neutrality is going to be a key driver in how that video is delivered via over the top. And one of the questions that certainly we have, and we think it's great for the consumer, great for the industry, is the ability to have a neutral network where those who push a lot of video are able to use that dedicated network or a neutral network for their video delivery.
So are you starting to see tangible effects of having elements of the 4 pillars creating more demand within your family of companies?
Certainly there's a cross-pollination between the companies, and we're able to share ideas, share customers, having that relationship. So obviously between macro sites, which Vertical Bridge offers, and Extenet, where it's small cell, we've certainly had joint carrier discussions. We frequently have discussions with our carrier partners, with our customers about data centers. So absolutely having that wireless infrastructure platform has already started some of those cross-pollination discussions with our customers.
So carriers are seeing the benefit of one infrastructure provider.
Absolutely, having one discussion.
Great. Okay, so I'm just going to look for soundbite now on WIA.
Yep.
What's the best part of being at WIA? besides meeting the
Yeah,
people?
yeah.
You know, what have you gotten? What's tangible out of that?
Yeah, so for me at WIA, you know, just the energy level and being able to assess the energy level of the industry, you're able to get a heartbeat for the industry when you come to WIA every year.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Jake McLeod, Chairman and CEO of Graybeards Consulting.
Okay. Jake, talk a little bit, what do you do here with the WIA and what's your role?
Well, I'm chairman of the Innovation and Technology Council, which is just an incredible organization. It's several of the industry colleagues, about 45 to 50 guys and gals have got together. And we're asking questions like, what keeps you awake at night? What are we looking at over the horizon to get to, and then we address those things. Okay, we can start over on that one.
Yeah. I just told the guy too. Okay, so yeah, start with the chairman of the...
Okay. Yeah, Jonathan asked me to chair the Innovation and Technology Council, and it's a tremendous group of industry colleagues, both men and women, that the main question is what keeps you awake at night? And let's take a look over the horizon to see what's coming down the pike with regard to technology and advanced services, and how is that going to impact our infrastructure. And so we've written a number of papers, and it's a collaborative effort, so it's not just the opinion of one person. And each team or each paper has a chairman, and then the chairman gathers up individuals to join in the collaborative effort. And we develop these papers that are just industry-wide. We just recently published them in hard copy. And we've also mounted them on the WIA website in the library. And they're getting tremendous accolades with regard to the accuracy and the opinions, and it's causing a lot of good conversation in the industry.
You talk about the rural paper, particularly, and who some of the players were, because I think you had a cross-disciplinary team.
Right. We just announced the finalization of the Rural Broadband Working Group, and the chairman was Tom Kane of NB+C, and then Bernard Borghi of John Deere, and then Brian Darr, Mosaic, Ray Heil of GMA, Keith Kaczmarek of Public Safety Ventures, and Mark Lowenstein of John Deere. These guys looked at all of the rural wireless issues, the power distribution, the agriculture, the innovation that needs to occur in the rural communities to provide them the same advantages that we have with regard to broadband. And so the efficiencies in agriculture alone are enormous when you're talking about broadband connectivity. So that's just one of many papers. We had a technical preparation for 5G infrastructure deployments, headed up by Don Bach. We've got education and training. Holy smokes, that's a great one. This is the second paper by Dr. Rick and Thacker, who, we've got a real problem in the industry with regard to properly trained individuals from a technical perspective. And Dr. Thacker has taken the bull by the horns. He's a professor at the University of Maryland and written a curriculum, and now we're moving into various more granular aspects of the curriculum. So his work there is amazing.
How about, you've been coming to the WIA in general for years, so what's the best aspect of being part of the WIA and coming to the events?
Oh, it's just a fantastic event. Jonathan has put together, and his staff obviously have put together tremendous networking opportunities, education opportunities, and policy reviews. It covers the industry. So it's like, why wouldn't you be here? This is a real benefit to the industry.
That was the one. Say your name and title.
Do I say like hi or anything, or just
no,
just kind of? Okay. Rick and Tucker, Vice President of Telecommunication and Spectrum Policy, at multicultural. I can repeat that. Yes, it's because I usually go by MMTC, but I need to remember it's a long name: Multicultural Media and Telecom.
Yeah, well, this is fun because you practice. You can go ahead. Shoot
Okay.
again.
Yeah. Rick Tucker, Vice President of Telecommunication and Spectrum Policies at MMTC, which is Multicultural Media, Telecom, and Internet Council.
And you are a professor at which university?
I am also next-gen faculty at University of Maryland and also George Washington University.
Terrific. And you work with the ITC. Can you describe what that is and why you're involved?
Sure. So Innovation and Technology Council, ITC as known, which is part of WIA or WIS initiative, I am actually chair of their education and training working group.
Great. And what are some of the initiatives you're working on?
So as part of the ITC, ITC group, ITC Education and Training Working Group, we are actually focused on bringing the outlines of education and training. I guess I need to actually mention this better way. And you're going to edit all this.
Okay, so yeah, you just like you started the tape over, just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I've done this a few other times, so I know. So as part of ITC, particularly for the Education and Working Training Group, as part of the ITC, I'm actually messing. Yes.
Don't worry. Just dive into what.
Right. As part of ITC's Education and Training Working Group, our focus is actually to outline the need for training initiatives in the wireless industry. We actually identify the skill gap which is already there, and the industry, particularly wireless industry, is always looking for skilled labor workforce. And also we have this tremendous pool of candidates, but there is this gap. So that's what actually we try to bridge. We published a paper last year which is actually identifying the skill gap in the wireless industry, and particularly in the education domain. We identified what the fundamentals of wireless and RF communication course should have. There are many courses out there, but they are actually vendor specific, or many courses are actually staying within the company itself. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to actually take the vendor piece out of it and bring the vendor neutral front end, because these fundamentals are absolute prerequisite or essentials for any jobs into whether it's a macro or DAS or small cells. So the paper is already out there. It's published last year, and this year's initiative we are actually focusing more on identifying the skill sets required for 5G and what kind of training and topics you should have into your curriculums so that you can train your employees and future workforce for 5G technologies when it becomes available.
That was the killer sentence right there. So one more. So what do you like best about the WIA? And hopefully you have more.
No, I want to say, so that's actually the ITC working group for the education. I'm also doing, I'm co-authoring the smart communities as well. Do we want to mention something about that?
Yes, actually, I forgot. I didn't think about
No,
that.
I just want to.
Actually, I want to do a special on the. So, yeah, so talk about what the Smart Communities Committee is, and then what you see is what is necessary to create smart communities.
Sure. I'm also helping the other working group on smart communities, and my role for that paper is actually to identify the importance and highlight the importance of smart and sustainable communities, and how that is going to actually help with people with low income and minorities, and how it helps actually bridge the or close the digital divide. And that is the take actually I'm going to bring to the white paper we are producing under smart communities.
And I understand that that group is made up of not only technologists, but leaders of cities as well.
Yes, I think that's true. So we are actually getting a tremendous response from the city planners, and various municipality planners are also actually willing to contribute to the paper. They are bringing their take on what they should actually have as a part of smart and sustainable cities and communities, and the industry contribution is actually coming from all these leaders and member companies of WIA. So I think that piece is going to be pretty useful, and together the paper is going to be of tremendous value and is going to be available later this year.
That was the one. Good. Go ahead and just say the title from you.
Sure. Nick Maynard, Chief Strategy Officer, US Ignite.
Terrific. And can you tell me a little bit about the initiative, the PAWR, and how you pronounce that?
Absolutely. So it's the Platform for Advanced Wireless Research, pronounced POWER, and it's a $100 million program that we are the project office for with National Science Foundation and 30 industry partners.
And what's the purpose of this, and who should be paying attention?
So the purpose is to create 4 city-scale networks across the country. And these are test beds that researchers from industry, cities, universities can come and test drive their next-gen wireless device or equipment or service, and really accelerate the development of these technologies, getting them out of the laboratory and into the marketplace.
So would you describe this as sort of a PPP type of effort?
Exactly right. And this is really unique because we've had a lot of public-private partnerships like this in the past, but they've really tended to be driven by the government first and not having industry at the table, helping drive the direction of the program, helping write the RFP that's out there now for cities to respond to, and really helping and set the technical vision and goals of the program.
And why did you think it was smart to come here and speak at WIA?
So WIA has a terrific set of members that we really want to reach out to in cities across the country. It's important to us for us to reach out to that membership and let them know about the program, and to say to them, we want to work with you in making sure that POWER is a success.
And is there, what advice would you give the bidders? I mean, is it all 100 million or nothing, or how does that work, and what would be the appealing pitch to make?
That's a great question. So what we want to see is a technical vision. What is the use case that what is the challenge you're trying to address? And so it could be building an urban smart transportation test bed that brings together industry and university and city collaborators. It could be a rural test bed for white spaces that really helps drive the cost of serving these communities in rural America. And what we want to see is really that partnership, right, between a city and a university. We don't want to just see a university professor, no matter how great they might be or how many great grad students they might have. What we want is a city-scale network, and to do that, it really takes the university working with the city to do that deployment.
Sure, and the White House had a smart city challenge that I guess was transportation. Right?
That's exactly right. So DOT, Department of Transportation, had a $40 million challenge, and that was really focused on smart transportation issues across the country. So you had 80 cities respond to that solicitation. They had 7 finalists, and Columbus, Ohio won. So they received $40 million in support, and Columbus was able to bring $100 million in match funding from state, local, and foundation support. So what we want to do, that was a one-off program. This is 4 separate test beds across the country. So even if people don't win this year, they'll have 3 other opportunities to apply.
So the $100 million will be awarded over 4 years, 25 million tranches?
So it will be 25 million to each winner, and those winners will have 5 years of funding through that 25 million. And so that will be $100 million total in facility deployment that NSF and the industry consortium is funding. On top of that, NSF is spending $50 million a year in R&D dollars. So these are the research projects that will run on top of those research test beds.
Wow, okay. And then all 4 will be awarded in the next calendar year, or how does that all roll out?
That's a great question. So we'll have 1 to 2 announced this year. We'll have a 3rd one next year, and the 4th one the following year. So folks will have a chance to improve their proposals and come back to us next year if it doesn't work out this year.
Terrific. Any other things you'd like to add about the program?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah, that was good.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to just say your name, title.
My name is Bob Deletto. I work for Keysight Technologies. I do new business development.
Okay. And you're working on this PAWR, the power program, is that right?
Yes,
Talk a little bit
we're on the
about why
board.
that's exciting to your company and what your role is in
Well, we're on the board. We were one of the original sponsors of it. We are one of the 3 to 4 test and measurement companies that are involved in this. Our reason for being there is, like most other people, it is a gateway into what's the future of wireless communications. It gives us an opportunity to see what maybe a 6G network is going to look like rather than a 5G network. And in fact, while we were doing this, one of the things that came up when we were writing the platform requirements was it started to look too much like a 5G network. So we moved and said this should be really a 6G network, which nobody knows what that looks like, and there was a reason for that.
So do you, are there specific technologies you expect to see or you're interested, or is this really gee whiz, let's see what comes out of this?
It's really gee whiz, and I mean there'll be some there'll be RF in it, obviously, because it's a wireless network, and we do make RF test equipment, spectrum analyzers, and vector signal analyzers, and we'll provide those. We also do handhelds, so it's a good opportunity for people to drive around and test. So one of the things we see, this is a research platform, so measurement is pretty important. Have to be able to document what you did, have to be able to reproduce it, and that's basically what we do.
Are there what other private companies are involved in on the board or trying to help drive this?
Well, there are probably 30 private companies. Like I said, there's probably 3 or 4 test and measurement companies that are in
Yeah,
our
I don't
space.
need to drill down that far then. I get the NSF and all. So.
Yep.
Well, good. That's the sound bites I needed, I think.
Okay, good.
Your name and title?
Rebecca Hunter, Corporate Development Strategy, Crown Castle.
Okay. Rebecca, we're at the WIA. Have you been to WIA before?
Yes, I have.
What do you find most interesting about the WIA?
I think it's a great opportunity for the industry to get together and collaborate and discuss new and innovative ideas about what's going on today and what can be going on in the future.
And why was it important to present power to this audience?
I think power is an opportunity that we cannot afford to miss. I think the research community, the municipal community all understand its importance, and it was a very critical opportunity today to present the power platform to the industry so we could engage them in a critical aspect of how this is going to move forward.
Does Crown envision themselves partnering with any of these universities to help deliver solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So Crown Castle joined the board of the US Ignite and the power for just that reason. We feel like we can not only assist through our in-kind contributions of potential assets with the cities, but also with our experience in actually deploying these networks, operating networks, and finding solutions that work collaboratively, again, with municipalities, universities, and industry, because that's really our strong point.
Yeah, I mean, Crown's got that backbone now, which includes fiber, right? So,
That's correct.
There's a lot of wires in wireless, right?
That's right. There's no wireless without wires, actually.
So what would be the, so the overall message, what would you say to the universities and that community about, how to approach this so that they can win those dollars?
Well, I think, our message has consistently been, you make sure you have a strong partnership. Make sure that the conversations that the universities and the industry partners and your city partners are very transparent, are very open, because if there's not a very detailed conversation about what does your platform look like, what installations do you need on buildings or structures, what type of fiber connectivity do you need, then you're going to run into problems down the road when somebody says, well, I didn't realize that by doing research in this particular way, it meant that you were going to have to bore under this street or put this size of an antenna on that pole. And so the early conversations, it's like the communicate early and often, and I think that's who will be successful.
One of the things that excites me when we talk about smart cities and smart communities is the ability when you go to a very dense area, particularly when I'm in Washington, D.C., and trying to find a parking space. If you've got the capacity to monitor and get a signal that tells me that, you know, there are no parks on this street. I can make my meetings on time. There will be less frustration, more efficiency. So when you talk about how to make cities more effective and more smart and more intuitive to individuals, I think 5G and other technologies are really, really, you know, on the horizon, are really what the doctor's orders, so to speak. People want these types of efficiencies. They need it. They want to be more interactive with their government, and all of these things allow for that to happen. I just left Los Angeles, and they were one of the things, how they're using technology to really leverage, you know, their communities, is using that information and that data to really make investment in terms of communities. So all of these things are extremely important when it comes to how to make a community more functional, how to make it more inclusive, and how policymakers, how local officials can really serve their communities best. They're getting that information in real time, and they're delivering the service in almost real time, and that's a win-win for everybody.
That was perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're at the show. Jonathan, talk about how the show's gone so far, and if you're happy.
We've had a blockbuster show. This has really gone well. We've had a huge outpouring of participation, both sponsors, exhibitors, and people that have attended the show. And I've heard nothing but great comments from folks about having the right connections here, meeting people they needed to do business with. A lot of great deals being made, a lot of great panels. We've heard all kinds of content about the future of wireless, future of infrastructure and how it fits with spectrum, how it fits with 5G, how it fits with smart cities. It's just been one of the great shows of the wireless industry.
You were recently appointed to a FCC commission or a committee. Why don't you talk about what it is and what the goals are?
Well, the chairman of the FCC appointed me and 29 others to the Broadband Deployment Advisory Committee to try to find ways to remove barriers to getting wireless broadband and wireline broadband deployed in the United States. I'm in charge of making sure that we make it easier to deploy on federal lands. They're also looking at establishing a model state code, a model municipal code, connecting to existing infrastructure. It's really a visionary group of industry leaders and municipal leaders that are coming together to try to put a blueprint on paper for the future of wireless infrastructure deployment. I think it's a great step by the chairman to bring together that group at this time to give advice to the FCC on how they can move the ball forward and get more wireless broadband to meet this burgeoning demand among consumers.
So what are the biggest challenges to deploying broadband?
Well, we're seeing more and more support from localities, states, and the federal government for assisting us in removing regulatory barriers, but there's still a lot that persist. There's misnomers about radio frequency emissions, that somehow there's an issue there, which there's not. The FCC has determined this safe within the limits that they set, and our industry always meets those limits. They throw up all these concerns about putting infrastructure in place. Sometimes they try to take advantage of the industry to charge unreasonable fees in order to get infrastructure placed on community street furniture and rights of way. There are all kinds of impediments that localities throw up. And sometimes, whether it be a locality or the federal government, there just aren't enough resources to process the sheer volume of applications that are beginning to pour in, particularly as many small cell nodes are being sited. So we have a challenge on our hands. We're hoping that the Broadband Development Deployment Advisory Committee can help to address those.
You operate a group called the HeadNet Forum. Well, what is a HeadNet?
Well, a HeadNet is something that grew out of the DAS, a distributed antenna system group that is in building and outbuilding wireless systems that are designed to be multi-tenant, that are for a particularly concentrated area, either in a very busy large building like a stadium, or outdoors in a busy area where multiple carriers would want additional capacity and coverage. The HeadNet now encompasses much more than just DAS. It encompasses small cells and femtocells and how they interface with the macro network of large cell towers that provide umbrella coverage and capacity. So HeadNet is really the amalgam of all of the different antenna solutions that meet consumers' growing need for wireless data. whether it be a large structure, a small structure, a medium-sized one on a side of a building, on a tower, inside of a building. It all fits together, and the HetNet Forum is a group where folks come together to figure out how that HetNet is going to evolve, to try to push forward the boundaries of it, try to remove obstacles, try to develop business, try to work with verticals like real estate companies, hotels, stadiums, to let them know about what the options are that are available to meet their wireless needs.
Good. That vertical mention is very important. Okay, so going back to deployment again, you formed this, the FCC put together this committee. Can you name some of the other members and what are the first couple of issues you're going to directly address?
Well, we have a number of members from the Wireless Infrastructure Association that are on the panel. We are going to start by addressing barriers. There's a number of working groups that are breaking out into separate sessions to debate how we're going to establish a model wireless code for localities, how we're going to have a model legislation for states, how we're going to connect to existing infrastructure, how we're going to improve siting on federal lands. These are working groups that are tackling some of the biggest issues in wireless infrastructure today.
We hear about 5G a lot. Can you talk about the promise of 5G and what's the impact on society might be?
Well, 5G is going to revolutionize, I think, the industry by creating very low latency, instantly available data everywhere, in every corner where it's available. It's a really exciting new technology. Standards are still being developed. We expect widespread rollout by 2020 when those standards are established, and they'll roll out over a number of years. So it's an opportunity for the wireless infrastructure industry to upgrade these networks to meet the consumer's needs for this. It'll enable smart cities, it'll enable connected cars, it will enable a whole range of new applications that we haven't even been able to dream of yet, but certainly will improve the experience that people are having today, be it with video or gaming or emergency medical procedures that need low latency. The benefits go on and on. It's going to be expensive, it's going to be time consuming, but it's going to be worth it. And the wireless infrastructure industry is ready to work with our policymaking friends in the federal, state, and local government to facilitate the way, to open the way for 5G and all the wonderful opportunities it provides to consumers.
Okay, so I noticed for the first time that you've had a number of Internet of Things type panels. Can you explain the impact of Internet of Things on wireless infrastructure and where that's all going?
Well, Internet of Things is another wonderful application over existing wireless networks. Some IoT can be run over 2G, 3G, 4G, some of it 5G will enable, but all kinds of devices being connected to the network, smart cities, smart houses, smart cars, all of these things require connectivity to either the internet or to private networks that will connect these devices in such a way as they can be intelligently programmed, they can communicate seamlessly together. I think it's going to be a revolution in modern communications. And again, it's another opportunity for wireless infrastructure. On top of all of the data that's already traveling over the network, here's another huge amount of data that is going to be piled on to these networks that are already straining under the demands. So we're going to have to continue to grow and expand wireless networks to accommodate the needs of IoT.
What's a compelling reason for organizations to get involved in the WIA?
Well, the Wireless Infrastructure Association is the entire ecosystem of the wireless industry. They all come together here at our show. They come together through events that we have, through working groups like the Innovation and Technology Council, the HetNet Forum, the Infrastructure Developers Forum. We have a number of venues for people to work with their peers to move the industry forward as thought leaders. It's an opportunity for business development, and we also are the voice of the industry in front of policymakers in Washington, in the states, in localities. So if you want to remove regulatory barriers, every bit of resources that you pour into WIA gets put back into advocacy on behalf of the entire industry. So it's a way to help not only your company to network, to raise your profile, to engage with others in the industry at your level, very senior levels that participate here at WIA, but also to move the entire industry forward in front of policymakers and in terms of thought leadership. at the board meeting.
Okay, so WIA is embarking on an ambitious training program. Can you talk about what the goals are and what you're putting together?
Yeah, we're finding increasingly there's a skills gap between what our companies need to build these networks and the available labor pool. So we want to make sure that we have enough workers that are trained and skilled to do the job and do it right. Do it right the first time. We're hearing a lot of rework needs to be done, a lot of dissatisfaction about the quality of some of the work. Some of it's done very well, some not so much. So we want to bring up the standard of quality by offering world-class training programs, which we have developed here through WIA, drawing on our subject matter experts in the industry that have poured their expertise into a curriculum that's second to none that we're offering through what we call the Telecommunications Education Center, or TEC. All kinds of wonderful opportunities. You can look at techonline.org or WIA.org to find more options about what we're offering. We're going to continue to build that out, not only for tower techs and safety, but for small cell and DAS deployment as well.
And will this all be online, or will it be in class, or a combination?
We'll be teaching these courses in person, also online, and we can go to the location. We're putting together a world-class faculty to improve the skills of our workforce, to teach the basics like Wireless 101, but then to get into more depth on actual deployment. Really a technical level training. We're not training RF engineers, you got to go to college for that. But when it comes to the technical skills you need in the field and the basic background on RF or radio frequency, we're going to have the 101 available so that the whole industry gets a better baseline of knowledge.
Sure. Okay, so on you have a focus on supplier diversity. Can you talk about why that's important and why what wireless infrastructure is doing to promote that?
Well, we believe that there's a need for a more diverse workforce, more small businesses, more veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, minority businesses. The more we get participating in the ecosystem, the better it is for those who are building these networks. Having a diversity in the supply chain is a win-win. It benefits the companies that are starting out and someday maybe large providers, and it benefits the companies that are contracting with them by having more options on which to draw.
And who are some of the companies that are participating in the program?
Well, we have the sponsors that are helping to promote this include the largest wireless carriers, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, the largest infrastructure companies from SBA, American Tower, Crown Castle, Insight, and Vertical Bridge. We have Black & Veatch on the construction side, all committed to diversifying their vendor supply chain.
So, you say your name and company?
Bob Langston, ADRF.
Terrific. Okay, Bob. So, first of all, talk a little bit about what ADRF, what it's doing to help densify the networks.
Well, the uniqueness about the ADRF solution is our modularity and our scalability. With our DAS platform here, you can come in with one carrier, say, and just by adding simple modules in the head end and in the remote, you can add on more operators, you can add on more services. It's a really excellent solution.
You have a Verizon piece of gear up in the top. Talk about what that is.
This features the Verizon, the Samsung actually, by Verizon eFemtocell for 256 simultaneous users. This is a low-power device, goes into our head end. Our head end will accept 0 to 48 dBm, so it's a wide range. You could do the eFemto, you could do Spider Cloud, you could do MRO, you could do the big Ericsson base station by T-Mobile using the same cards. And again, one fiber out to the remote, add modules, unique solution.
And that you said that's modular. What type of capacity does it enable?
It's limited by your source and by your backhaul. This kind of capacity for Verizon Wireless, again, 256 simultaneous users, where the capacity would be the number of slots here. That's based on the number of service providers that you would want to add on the DAS. And again, single fiber out to the remote, same electric out at the remote. So as you scale modularly with other operators and other services, you can utilize the same chassis. No need for extra fiber, no need for extra power.
So talk to densification in general, like we're densifying the networks utilizing DAS, small cell, the tools, and then just in general. Don't use ADRF or the gear.
Okay.
So
Yeah, in terms of densification, I mean, we can talk about over-the-air repeaters. We can talk about femtocells. We can talk about different RF environments that again interface into a DAS, and at the same time with the DAS, you can also affect that with repeater technology. Again, bringing the signal in over the air into the DAS, and then the DAS could be uniquely placed via fiber optics and then just local power at the remote side. All of the features, all of the different operators, different services, and you could run the fiber out to, say, different buildings and promote your coverage among several customers, whether they're large customers, smaller customers, dense users. Support for 5G coming in the coming years, and I feel it's a very unique solution that, again, through the same fiber.
In general, why is DAS necessary?
We feel it's the ultimate transport for a modular solution at the head end. You can add, you can add all the service providers. You can add new bands. You can do 600. You can do 3.5. Again, all being modular through the same fiber, and it's the ultimate solution.
Give me a line like DAS, brings the antenna closer to the user. Okay, so talk about why public safety DAS is. Right, you have audio now. It's been on. You got the last one. So you're going to hang for a minute?
Yeah, I'll hang for a minute. How you doing?
All right. So you guys know.
Hello? 1, 2, 3.
You guys running now. Go ahead. Okay.
Public safety is important to us here at ADRF. We understand that our first responders play an extremely important role within their communities, and their communications are very important to them. So the equipment and the solutions that we make here at ADRF support public safety and our first responders, and we want to make sure that we're working with them to provide solutions that are extremely helpful and effective for those in the field.
What do you find interesting about being here at the WIA show?
Being here at the WIA show is exciting for us because Florida, for example, is a great community for public safety. The state, the county, and the cities are very focused on public safety, so at ADRF we want to be here and support those folks as well. But also the show brings together a lot of innovative and effective solutions that ADRF can partner with to provide a total solution for our first responders.
Okay. All right, back to public safety. What are the major issues affecting in-building public safety?
Sure. Some of the major issues affecting in-building public safety, first and foremost, are coverage. So building structures, LEED certified windows, things of that nature really can prevent radio signal from penetrating these buildings. Therefore, at ADRF, we want to make solutions that can bring that signal into these buildings. Other issues come up are various requirements from jurisdictions that can change from county to county and state to state. So it's trying to stay on top of those and communicate those to our partners who may be system integrators or installers who are doing the work and installing the equipment. That can also represent a challenge as these standards may change or vary from agency to agency.
Do you feel that the first responders are aware of what the regulations are with the NFPA and understand the technical ramifications of in-building systems?
In some cases, yes, we have seen first responders who have folks who are dedicated to staying on top of the regulations and requirements, but in some cases it is quite new. In those situations, these folks in the public safety agencies we work with are hungry to learn more, so we'll do specific training classes with them. We'll talk about the technology, but we also end up tying up the loose ends that may exist between the NFPA and other requirements that may or may not make it to various first responder agencies and divisions.
What should building owners be considering when they are designing a new building?
One of the most important things for them to consider is how will communications work. We understand that the buildings themselves have specific requirements, but one of our first responder contacts really informed us. They said, we would love the architects to work with the building management and with the community leaders in public safety so that everybody gets on the same page when they consider the building and the structure and the communications that are required.
Connected communities are well-to-do communities. The winner was Columbus, Ohio. They actually put a bid into DOT to say, hey, smart cities can help the infant mortality rate. They found that the underprivileged communities, which were not connected, had much higher infant mortality rates than the well-to-do communities. So they won a $60 million grant from the federal DOT to say, hey, here's a start. Let's solve this problem using connected automated vehicles.
I want you to go back, I just want to make sure I get this one. The role of the cellular carrier, 5G, and do the short range again. Just want to have two takes on that one because that's key there.
Sure. Obviously with the smart vehicles, the connected autonomous vehicles, the cellular carriers are a key player, not just an enabler. They are critical in the development of connected vehicles. They'll be playing, right now they play with 4G, but as 5G rolls out and it becomes ubiquitous, it becomes the nation standard, the amount of data and the speed at which the data needs to be transferred is immense, and 5G is a key enabler to facilitate that.
And how many terabytes per day would a vehicle use?
Right, so if you just look at the one car traveling autonomously in one day, and this comes from CEO of Intel, they project that there's 4 terabytes of data that would be transferred from the car to the surrounding environment. So there's got to be a way not only to process that amount of data, there's got to be a way to transmit over wirelessly over that data, either whether it's 5G or wirelessly. And you also have to have facilities to do data analysis. So big data, neural networks, deep learning, all those come into play with that amount of data.
And talk again about the short-range components, just so I make sure I have that.
Sure. So there's a couple components that go into what we call a mesh network. One would be the short-range communication, DSRC, where the nodes are communicating on a short-range basis. And then when you get to a mesh point where you can have larger amounts of data offloaded, that would be a mesh network where you have a 5G or Wi-Fi to transfer large amounts of data.
Any other topics or things you want to hit on? I think we got enough. Because what I look for is sound bites that I can put in 30 seconds or 20 seconds, and then another guy talks. And
sure.
And you can put pretty pictures.
Bernard Borgai. Bernard Borgai from Vertical Bridge.
Perfect.
All right. Ooh, where's the...
Get the Carnegie Hall. All right, so...
I was hoping for an Oscar, but okay. No. Just kidding. Just kidding.
So I'm a native New Yorker. So Bernard, we're at the WIA. You've been a member for years. Can you talk about what the benefits are of the WIA?
Sure. I think this is a very important association, especially given the recent amount of activities on the regulatory side, legislative side, and technology side. It gives us a voice as this part of the industry for all of us on the infrastructure side to harmonize our policies, our agenda, and have a avenue to make sure that our voices, our concerns, or our challenges are heard. And also it gives us the platform like this gathering to catch up with all of our vendors, clients in one venue, efficiently, effectively being able to communicate, catch up on projects, talk about the things that are coming down the pike. So it's important for a mature industry like ours to have an association that's strong enough to represent us in DC and in all of the various states, and also be able to put up gatherings like this together to bring all of us and our tenants and partners together.
What do you see as the major deployment challenges in this new era?
Well, some of the challenges are challenges we've had for the last couple of decades. There's still some permitting processes and regulatory requirements that have always been challenging for us when it comes to, an example would be tribal reviews. And I think there's beginning to be a positive focus and movement towards trying to resolve some of those things. The concept of small cells has definitely brought focus on trying to streamline and standardize deployment processes. So that helps. But I think, when you look at, IoT and 5G deployment, some of the challenges are still going to be, the same. Find the right location, find a willing landlord who wants to work with you, make sure the location makes sense for your clients, and make it through the regulatory and permitting process to bring the site up as quickly as possible.
Digital Bridge and Vertical Bridge, the family there, is focused, I think, on 4 pillars for its growth.
Right. Well, we got a couple of data center companies, and that gives us the ability to address the, for us, the whole thing is about convergence. Let's just step back and talk about it. Convergence is what we see in the communications sector. And with the discussions about 5G, what's beginning to happen is that content is sort of becoming key, and there is a platform of delivering content that's sort of converging with the wireless carriers and how it's getting delivered. We're hearing conversations about OTT, and there is the fiber that's now required in order to provide the bandwidth, the low latency, and the high definition video that it's becoming the key focus for 5G. And so what Digital Bridge is doing is investing and starting up companies that, when put together, can be a turnkey service provider of all of this convergence solution needs that our carriers and tenants and clients are going to need. So we have Extenet that focuses on small cells and fiber. We have Data Bank and Vantage that are focusing on the multi-layer sizes of data center business. And then you have us in the U.S. domestic market in the tower business, and we have our Mexico tower partners and also our Indian towers company that focuses in the rest of the Latin market. So Digital Bridge's focus is to be a turnkey solution provider of fiber, small cells, physical assets, and data centers.
Great. There's a lot of talk about smart cities and autonomous cars and all these new services. What's the impact going to be on the tower industry? And do you think 5G is going to be a major growth opportunity?
So, we talk about 5G as more of a revolution and not an evolution. When you look at what is contemplated to be in 5G and compare it to LTE, LTE was a pretty narrow standard, and it caused a lot of activities for everybody in the industry, including tower companies. 5G is a massive standard, and it's going to be rolled out in different phases. There is a network virtualization on the core side that carriers are already beginning to focus on, but it's going to be a mandate or requirement actually in order to make 5G happen. And then it comes all the way to the physical layer and the radio side. And we believe all of this is going to have a positive impact for the tower industry, and there are going to be new equipment, and there are also going to be new entrants. We're already seeing some IoT players that are trying to deploy nationwide networks, and so with the net neutrality concept also sort of being talked about as phasing out and or not becoming a reality, we believe that the internet providers and content providers are going to be forced to look at how they're going to deliver the content and not have an operator or a wireless network to sit between them and their end clients. So I think 5G is going to be a massive standard rolled out over 7 to 8 years or maybe even a decade, and it's going to have impact on all various sectors of our industry, including the tower industry, and the impact should be positive.
Are your carrier customers beginning to ask you to give you the turnkey solution? Do you have a location for data center? Get me a fiber and then get me the tower.
Right. So a few of our carriers really like the ideas, and they've been asking us to show them how a sort of a turnkey solution would work. And we're looking at where they have their core networks and locations and the data centers, and we're beginning to sort of formulate proposals that would be in line with this whole turnkey solution. Nothing specific has materialized, but the conversations are getting attention, and we're getting definitely sort of engagement from our carriers that this is something that they're beginning to see as well, and they want to continue the discussions.
But your investments are pretty much, they can all stand on their own?
Absolutely.
Is nice, but
yeah, every one of the Digital Bridge companies, it's run as a separate business. It's its own profit and loss center, different management team. We all complement each other's business, but we don't have to continuously rely on each other to grow the business.
Okay, so I got good on the vertical and digital. I just want to do one more happy talk on WIA.
Okay.
Just say kind of a soundbitey why you love this, or just you don't have to be love. But,
Okay. What would work?
A lot of knowledge, great networking.
Okay.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So WIA, perfect sort of a gathering to catch up with a lot of experts in the industry, get caught up on all the recent trends and standardizations and issues that we all deal with individually in our companies. But this is a perfect platform to catch up with all of our peers and colleagues and experts, and make sure that again once the industry is harmonized and it's working towards the same common goal. So it's a very critical platform to have the association and also have this gathering that allows us to get together with everybody.
Okay, so talk a little bit about why you're in WIA and what are some of the more important initiatives you're involved with.
Sure. WIA is really critical to our whole industry as far as infrastructure owners go. So we're a member and a very active participant in WIA because a number of reasons. One is advocacy. They advocate for issues in our industry. It's very topical right now. There's a lot of changes coming, a lot of regulatory issues, conversations about infrastructure at the highest levels of government. We have, an opportunity to participate through WIA in shaping telecom policy and infrastructure policy for potentially the next 20, 30 years. So that's a very important part of what they do. Beyond that, the show itself is incredibly valuable because the people we see, the people we meet, new technologies. For example, at this show, we met with 4 different drone companies who are offering newer approaches, technologies, things that could potentially improve our information, automate our processes, and save us money down the road. And I think it's true also for our carrier tenants that they could also benefit. So no way could we be that efficient anywhere else but here to have that kind of a increase in our knowledge base in 2 days. So many, many reasons why WIA is a must for our company, and we probably send 20 people here every year at least.
Good, that's a good question. That was it. Okay, so talk about the IDF. You're on that committee.
Yeah, so IDF is something, independent developer forum, it's something Mark Ganzi was involved with at the beginning. It's a way for tower developers of any size, 1 tower to 100 towers plus, to talk about development issues. Building towers is a highly regulated, complex project. There's a lot of challenges. It is a lot harder than it looks, I've learned. And IDF is a way for the developers to get together and talk about industry issues that are relevant to everybody, get information. A lot of the larger WIA companies come in and present. Jonathan's there. But it's a great way for someone who's, generally working in a region or a specific area of the country, and they really know that region and they're doing what they do, to step back, get a bigger perspective on, hey, what's going on in the rest of the world that I may need to know about. One thing that's very topical is many states are either considering or have passed laws that allow structures to be built in the municipal rights of way without any local municipal control. And so that's somewhat controversial, but it could affect everybody in the industry. So if I'm an independent developer in pick a state, and that bill hits my state, how do I learn about what is it? How do I know how it's going to affect me, and prepare for it? Because, from my perspective, big regulatory changes are something that really impact our industry. Our industry's been built on local zoning, local regulation, and the ability to build a tower and have it somewhat protected. And anything that erodes that, I think, is I'm hypersensitive to, and I would argue if I own 2 towers or 4,000 towers, I would feel the same way. But if I own 2 towers, how would I know to find out? At least we have a general counsel, we have assistant general counsel, we have lawyers, we can hire law firms to tell us what's going on. I think IDF and WIA are a window into that for anybody in our business, and I think it's really important that that everybody has that avenue to learn about these issues, which could affect us all, and participate.
So you hit on a key topic, and this is fun because I can just go down a path here. But deployment is essential to the basically enabling the new economy, right? How progressive, or how many roadblocks are you running into, or are municipalities becoming more receptive and starting to partner up in how to do this?
Yeah, I think one, I think the Smart City Initiative is super fascinating. Hearing about like the gunshot detection and air quality, water quality. The potential is vast for municipality to become more efficient, save money for themselves, offer better quality of life, better safety, better health to their cities. I personally believe that cities on the margin do compete with each other. For new businesses and for new business locations. It's not just how much is my property tax, how much is my rent, how much are my employees paying in state income tax, but I think there's quality of life, technology issues that matter, so that's pretty important. potentially these bills, which take control out of the municipalities' hands for wireless siting in their jurisdictions, counters that. So you're going to have cities who aren't happy about that because they want to have some say in what's being built and where in their community. So again, I think the cities can be important partners, but the risk is they could be turned into actually opponents of wireless because they don't have control. People don't like to not have control, or there's a bug flying around here. I'm going to look crazy now, right? I'll be like swatting at a bug.
Yeah, mobility was the one.
I didn't see anybody here from there.
They actually had a booth.
Yeah, there weren't. I mean, I didn't see anybody of the top people. Yeah, I never made it to the floor. Don't put that in there. But I think that cities play a role. I think that there's been some cities who have been too aggressive in sort of their pricing for how they want to do detachments, and they've created a backlash. So now AT&T's led a big effort to basically preempt city control over small cells, and I think that's going to make the cities maybe oppose infrastructure deployment because they don't get to participate or have a say. So I worry about that. But I think in general, the smart city is just another example of the ecosystem that's growing around IoT and everything connected. And it's pretty exciting because almost every time I think about it, I can think of, or I hear about new apps, new applications that, get me excited about, well, here's another way you might be able to use it, or here's another thing you could do. And there's so many creative people coming up with all these ideas. It's, I think it is really going to revolutionize sort of our lifestyle in a lot of ways over the next 10, 20 years. So I'm excited.
Have you had any municipalities ask you to manage their assets, with street furniture, et cetera? It's become more important. You mentioned street furniture.
Yeah. So we haven't focused specifically on municipalities and managing their assets. I know there are people in our industry that do. And there's specific companies that have been set up over the years to do that. We have focused more on other types of company, but like, for example, the billboard companies have street furniture as well, bus shelters and things like that. So we do participate in that part of the market, and we're very actively, our job is to figure out where the owners of the wireless networks want to put antennas. Fundamentally, that's what we do. The basis of our business is it's a real estate business. We provide physical locations for anybody who wants to offer wireless services to put antenna and equipment to reach whatever customer base they're trying to reach. And that means all different kinds of assets. We have not participated that much directly with municipalities. We have over the years, but at Vertical Bridge that hasn't been a focus so far in our first 3 years. But we do see how that market's evolving because of the other street furniture that we do manage.
So what is street furniture?
I first started talking about street furniture actually in the UK in 2000. But essentially it's any of the boxes. You don't notice them unless you start looking for them, but telco boxes on the ground, bus shelters on the ground. I mean, I think it's a catch-all for sort of, I would say 10 feet or below type equipment on the ground. Most of it is, a foot or two high up to maybe 3 or 4 feet high, various different cabinets. Frequently utilities and telephone companies, the legacy LEC telephone companies have street furniture all around us that we don't necessarily notice. Now, a lot of places, the newer communities, certainly in Florida, for example, you don't see it. Everything's buried underground. But, up in the Northeast where I'm from, you see a lot of it. Not all of it is usable, in my opinion. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves if we think that a 4-foot-high metal box on a street corner that's 2 by 2 is a good place to put antennas. I think that may be a little bit, that would have to be an awful busy street corner to make that work. But I think that if you look at France, they use integrated bus shelters. We've also seen it in Latin America where you have a bus shelter and you get about 8 feet high. And put Wi-Fi on it, it starts to be interesting. There's a project I know Google's involved with in New York City that's using sort of payphone locations to upgrade them to include video payphones and have Wi-Fi built in as well.
The small cell revolution, are you seeing it take hold? Are carriers having more demand for street furniture and getting closer to the end user?
For sure. I mean, the history of our business is sites, as traffic builds, sites cover less geography because there's more density to serve. And, it's always been the same. Sites continuously come down and densify. Small cell is growing fast. Certain geographies, small cell makes all the sense in the world and is obviously the better solution. Fundamentally, I think carriers will seek and do seek the lowest cost per megabit delivered. And so whether that's a small cell, a macro cell, or something in between, and there's all different names for that, it's macro, mini macro. The real context is lowest cost per megabit delivered for that geography. So there's lots of places, I'm about to drive from Orlando back home. There's lots of places out there where there'll never be anything more efficient than macros. There's not enough demand density to require anything else, and there's plenty of spectrum. You get into the burbs, then you start to transition to where maybe certain spots make sense, small cell, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it's all the same thing, which is radios and antennas to serve, customers. And so it's just a function of density. If you're outside Wrigley Field, then you probably need small cells on street furniture all around Wrigley Field, because when that game gets out, all the other people in the bars and restaurants, the hotel they're building across the street, the office building next door, who their service is going to suffer if you don't. So that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's very much evolving. I don't think one size fits all. I think it's really evolving. I think the carriers are working very hard to industrialize small cells and find ways to make them the lowest cost per megabit delivered solution. But they want to do that across their whole network. They're driving cost out of their network across the board, and virtualizing the core. The equipment's a lot cheaper, so it's part of that equation, and I think it'll continue to evolve.
Recently, or over the last year or two, Digital Bridge has diversified and bought, I think one person described it as 4 pillars. But basically, you look at the whole heterogeneous network and the components of that infrastructure. You want to talk about why that's important?
Yeah. So the basic thesis at Digital Bridge is traffic to a mobile device basically goes from that mobile device to the closest antenna. And from that antenna, it goes into fiber for the most part. And then from there, it goes ultimately to a data center. And that this is the physical layer that supports wireless network. We've believed for a long time that everything will migrate to wireless over time. So we've seen voice go to wireless, then we've seen internet go wireless, and now we're seeing video go wireless. So fast forward 5 or 10 years, and the predominant delivery for video will be to a mobile device. The demographics absolutely show that. In that world, we are in the physical layer. We're a real estate business fundamentally. We're real estate guys fundamentally who know telecom. So we feel that the physical layer is always going to be needed. That's the core infrastructure that is required. So whether it's an antenna location, whether it's fiber or a small cell or fiber or a data center, this is where the growth will be to support this explosion of capability where we can walk around and have this tremendous power at our fingertips, video, data, big data, and all these devices making our lives easier, and our cars are driving themselves. So we just felt that when we looked at the next 10, 20 years, this physical layer is increasingly important and will experience tremendous demand and tremendous growth across those sectors. So Digital Bridge has investments in multiple different tower companies around the world, as well as data centers, as well as small cell and fiber.
Just discuss again the HetNet. What's a HetNet?
Right.
And what's
So a HetNet is a cool name. Our industry is good at coming up with cool names. So it's heterogeneous networks. It really just, to me, means a network of networks in a lot of ways. So it's sort of across multiple frequencies, across multiple capabilities. So I'll give you an example of what I think a HetNet is. Comcast has announced that they're going to offer phones to their customers. They have a MVNO relationship with Verizon. I would call that the umbrella. They also have Wi-Fi hotspots that they've already deployed. I think they said 10 or 15 million of those. So think fast forward, Comcast has a lot of customers. Let's say they have a few million people with iPhones that they're offering service to. I think over time they're going to want to capture some owner economics on how they deliver that service. If all they do is resell Verizon at a lower price point, it's going to be a loss leader, and I don't know if that's their strategy. But if it's not, they're going to look to capture owner economics. I think they would use a HetNet to do that, and so that would be Wi-Fi in some places. It could be unlicensed spectrum like the 3.5 band in some places. It may be licensed spectrum like the 600 megahertz they just bought, and it'll include reselling off the Verizon network. So a very heterogeneous network that is operated in a way that the customer doesn't really notice. Customers actually don't care what frequency. We get all caught up in it. They just want it to work.
Good point. Will you be speaking at the HetNet Forum in West Palm, in the backyard?
I don't think I'm speaking. I would imagine somebody is, but as far as I know, I'm not. But
Will you be there?
I'll definitely be. Yeah. So I'll be at the HetNet Forum. It's in my backyard. It's in beautiful Palm Beach. You're crazy if you don't come. That show's gained a lot of attendance and focus, and I'm looking forward to having it in our backyard.
Okay, let's touch on over the top.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's going on with over? What's the impact on the network?
Yeah, so OTT or over the top is, there's so much going on in the industry right now that it's something that I don't think we talk about very much with all these other topics, but it's fundamentally going to change some big things in the industry. So, historically, we had the video provider coming from the cable guys. There was competition from satellite, but it had its challenges. So the cable guys built out the country. Then along came the phone companies to say, hey, we're going to compete. And they were rolling out UVerse and Fios for AT&T and Verizon respectively, using copper, sometimes laying their own fiber, but kind of tough distribution and all within their own footprints. And difficult model when you're delivering it over copper in terms of steady quality. So now with 5G, the tests have proven that you can deliver a video package with low enough latency and enough bandwidth to compete over wireless. So, and this has just emerged in the last year or less. And so both Verizon and AT&T have said that they're committed to using 5G first to overlay on their existing network to offer fixed, the customers that don't move, fixed into homes, into businesses, internet and video that will compete very much directly with the cable companies on a much broader area. Has a lot of implications. One, the cable guys are consolidating pretty quick. I don't think it's unconnected. People are even talking about would Comcast and Charter combine, which would be unheard of even a couple years ago. But if there's enough competition, why not? So I think that's very profound. For our industry infrastructure, it means that the mobile 5G solution, which needs a standard, which won't really hit till 2020, let's say, there's going to be an on-ramp to that, which will be this fixed point to multi-point solution that's going to be rolled out starting next year. So that's again, everything's moving wireless. This infrastructure is important. It's being used and leveraged more and more and more. Ultimately, wireless is cheaper. If you don't have to build your last mile, if you don't have to have a truck roll to install, if you don't have to have somebody come out and run a physical drop into the house and then replace it every time it gets cut or it fails or gets water in it, much more cost effective. So I think what it means ultimately is much more competition for video, lower costs, more choices, and it really scrambles the competitive landscape of what is a phone company, what is a cable company, what is a wireless company, and it's also setting off a lot of repercussions in the content space as well.
So let's just, the last one, we'll touch on net neutrality and then kind of valuation of how you should do.
Yeah, so net neutrality is basically based on the argument that the carriers have a unique asset and that they need to allow access, the government needs to force them to allow access to new entrants, new providers through their network to customers. It was something that was an important agenda item for the Obama administration. It is pretty much, I'm told, on life support, if not dead. What that fundamentally means is Google, Amazon, Facebook, etc., will not be able to be guaranteed access on certain terms and pricing through Verizon or AT&T or Sprint or T-Mobile to the customers. So in a very profound way, it makes them think hard about how they're going to reach the customers. When you look at it and say teenagers, more than half of their video viewership is mobiles. And that's happened overnight. And that's, by the way, my generation is 100% is primarily television on a wall. So it's shifted overnight and it's going to continue to shift. As you look at that and your Facebook, you're dependent on your customers' contract and relationship with Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint to reach your customers. Is that going to be a long-term acceptable position for you as a business? I think probably not. Coupled with the fact that the market capitalization of Google, Facebook, Netflix, etc., is larger than the carriers, in some cases significantly larger, I think the inability of them to be assured from a regulatory standpoint that there's net neutrality, which lets them access the customers in a safe's not the wrong word, in a consistent way that is regulated, will force them to find an alternative way to get to those customers, which again could be very profound. So Google has Google Access. They've made a shift from fiber to wireless. They're looking at it hard. Now we hear Amazon's talking to Dish about, it's all part of that same backdrop, which is these companies that depend on access through the internet and with video to the end users need to find a way to get to those end users that isn't just completely dependent on a carrier.
So where there's a disincentive for Google to have the employees and the CapEx of the network, now it may become a strategic imperative, competitive advantage kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, and I don't know that they want to have necessarily the employees and operate a network. So the interesting thing for me is, will there end up being a wholesale network? So Mexico awarded a license for a wholesale network, and I think it's possible that there will be a wholesale network in the U.S. I think the ingredients are in the soup, so to speak, the primordial soup. I just don't know what will bring it together to form the network, but it could happen in a couple ways. I'll suggest a couple. One, if Sprint and T-Mobile announce that they want to try to merge, the government might say, well, you can do it, but you have to give up some of your spectrum to be used for a neutral network. One possibility, maybe unlikely. Another one might be Google and/or Comcast and/or Charter and/or some other folks get together to acquire Sprint and use that as a neutral host network. And what I mean by neutral host network is a wholesale network that sells megabits to anybody who wants to offer services over that network. I think it's a distinct possibility. There are a lot of people with deep pockets looking for a way to get directly to the customer.
Good. That's good. And we'll list on the FirstNet, since you brought up the wholesale network.
Yeah.
About that. What's the impact of FirstNet on the infrastructure business?
First of all, Mike Poth was here at the show. If you missed it, it was very interesting. You should look at what his comments were. Super informative. He's the CEO of FirstNet. FirstNet's finally going to start moving, which is great. They've made a lot of strides, and now the process is coming. The first step is proposals to the states for what's called opt-in or opt-out. If a state opts in, the network will be built primarily through an overlay by AT&T of their existing network. If a state opts out, that state has to come up with financing to deploy in that state and then hook into the FirstNet core. Fundamentally, FirstNet is the FirstNet was awarded by the federal government spectrum and money for a public safety network. They did it. They reached an agreement with AT&T where FirstNet contributes $6 billion. AT&T is committed $40 billion for a network rollout. AT&T is going to leverage the rollout of the FirstNet spectrum with WCS and AWS spectrum that they own to do a very broad 60 megahertz overlay upgrade on virtually all of their network. It may be all, but I don't know exactly, but it's a vast majority of their network. So that's the first step for FirstNet. In addition, though, Mike made it very clear that there's rural coverage requirements all the way. So AT&T has a 5-year phased commitment to cover a percentage of the demand. And within each phase, there is a rural component. And what that means is FirstNet wants coverage in places where AT&T doesn't have sites. And so not only will there be amendments for anybody who has a lease with AT&T to add FirstNet to the site, and that'll just be a function of what your lease says and how it would work, but they're going to want to swap antennas and add radios. But in addition to that, there will be greenfield new sites outside of the footprint of AT&T that FirstNet wants, which could be co-location opportunities for rural towers or opportunities for new towers to be built.
So that would be obviously good for...
There's a lot of good things going on. FirstNet is one of them, but many things. The bottom line is investment in wireless networks is good for our industry. And so when AT&T says we're going to invest $46 billion in our network, that's good. I mean, that's good for everybody. It's good for our industry. It's good for America. It's good for AT&T.